Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 3. He ate him up from head to toe, chewing the pieces nice and slow. It took an hour to reach the feet, because there was so much to eat, and when he finished, Pig, of course, felt absolutely no remorse. Slowly he scratched his brainy head and with a little smile he said, I had a fairly powerful hunch, that he might have me for his lunch. And so, because I feared the worst, I thought I'd better eat him first. The Pig by Roald Dahl. Naruto's first night outside of the Senju clan fortress was spent in a dream-like state, during which he followed the one-way dirt path deeper into the forest at the pace of a sleepwalker. Though there were undoubtedly many things waiting to be done, it was best that he not hurry now. The first reason for this would be because his body was still recovering from a month-long mental and physical siege, as well as a major regeneration. Second, he had no food, no money, no weapons, and absolutely no backup whatsoever. Third, he had no idea where he should head off to just yet. Obviously, his first destination should be a city, perhaps a capital from which he would extract information of the current political atmosphere, of ninjas in general, of the Uchiha in specific, and start drawing the blueprints to his plans. But to do that, he'd need to wait until morning in order to navigate. The forest was dark, the trees were old, and it was all too obvious that this was not the Konoha forest he had grown up in. The difference of 100 years was probably enough of a reason to scrape off the maps in his head and start it anew. The conclusion to all of these was it would be best for him to take it slowly, conserve his strength for now, and not to shoot off his rocker or he might have to backtrack himself come morning. With these thoughts in his head, Naruto wandered the forest blindly with his face skyward and his feet on autopilot, walking not to gain any ground or to go anywhere but just to confirm that he was really up and running, and this was not all a sweet dream of trees, moon, skies, and freedom, and he would not wake up to find himself facing the nightmarish reality of the Senju stone dungeon or the charred and barren landscape of the future, walking just to feel the pump of his muscles and to know that he really was alive. Though he knew that there was a large chance that he was being watched right now by a Senju scout, he was still in their territory after all, he had absolutely no worries. If Yoshizawa had any ill intentions, the Senju clan head wouldn't have bothered releasing Naruto out into this open field where he had far more chances of making a successful escape. Plus, Naruto did just spend the last 2 months being constantly watched by them while mostly defenseless. Compared to that, this was a walk in the park. When Naruto finally tired of the walking, he stopped by the massive roots of a tree, then sat down there and waited. The night sang him a lullaby of life, of whispering leaves, gurgling water, and buzzing insects, meaningless noises to others but they were the most beautiful sounds to Naruto's ears. He felt his body lulled into the song and his soul quiet and sink all the way into the earth and there it lay, rested and at home. This was heaven compared to the future he had escaped from, a landscape of rocks, bones, and black Amaterasu fire that kept gnawing at what little was left. And just like that, Naruto breathed out one long exhale, within which held all the exhaustion, pain, and loss of not just the 2 months with the Senju, but the whole 10 years he had been at war. And there, cradled in tangles of roots and on the leafy forest bed, he slept his first true sleep in many years, finally feeling safe and at peace. Perhaps on some instinctive, unconscious level of his mind, he had known and that was the true reason he had taken his time that first night. Perhaps intuition. Perhaps he didn't and it was simply pure chance. Either way, in the end, he was lucky to have been granted a night of rest, for this would be the last moment of calm he would have in a long time to come before the nightmare began. Naruto started his work from the minute the sun began to seep into the baby morning sky and woke him from his sleep. He jumped up to the tree tops and with a short sweep, determined that there was not a hint of civilization nearby. The forest spread all the way from the foot of the mountains to the horizon, split in half by a slender river. Behind his back was the Senju mountain. On his front, left, and right, was the never-ending army of trees and periodical open grassland. While this was undoubtedly the plains of Hai no Kuni, it was also the landscape of 100 years past, empty of the bridges, temples, and fun towns of his time, untamed and untouched by human hands. As far as he remembered, the capital of Fire Country was 3 days' worth of travel north of Konoha, but he was sure that it was nowhere near 100 years old, so heading north now was probably a long shot. He looked at the river then, not the Nakano, as it was heading west instead of south, and decided to follow it. Where there was water, there were bound to be human settlements nearby. As long as he could find a village, even a backwater one, he could ask for directions to larger cities. With this decided, he jumped down from the tree top and headed towards the general direction of the river. He started out fast, weaving and jumping his way between the trees, spurred on by a sense of urgency. There was much to do, information that was needed, people to find, and summon beast clans to contact, especially the summon beast clans. Alone, he wouldn't be able to do half of the things he set out to. He needed a power base of his own, a pseudo-clan so to speak, and the summon beasts with their seer sages were probably his best chance at it. He followed the river course for 3 days, drinking its water when he was thirsty and hunting the animals that had come to drink when he was hungry. At the end of the 3rd day, it was all he could do not to fly into the forest, find something ugly and kill it very very slowly. The frustration came not from the lack of village in sight but rather from his clearly defunct body. It had started out slow and innocuous, with a weird but not unbearable feeling, like someone had wrapped a water bed around him. His body moved oddly. Its muscle bounced and buoyed in places where it shouldn't. It moved like it had bags of liquid sloshing around under its skin while he ran. Gradually, the feeling strengthened. His balance felt off, as if he was running on a meter-high pole with his upper body pitched forward and not flat ground. His hips felt as if a motor rotator was grafted into the sacroiliac joint. His range of view looked as if someone had flattened it down and pulled it at 2 side ends, making it a pancake sort of vision. The effect was such that when he had passed a particularly dense woodland area and hadn't paid enough attention, he had run face first into a tree. And when he had started frog hopping, the 2 lumps attached to his very manly chest had bounced along with the up and down motion, and fuck did that hurt. After that, he'd quickly descended right back to the ground, hands inside the 2 large armor and fastened onto his quivering, involuntarily acquired female appendages. They weren't the outrageous size of his no jutsu, but they were a handful nonetheless, and their mass and weight were apparently plenty to pack a punch to his back and torso at a jump of 60 feet up the air. He had kept on going then with his hands as makeshift, but it hadn't lasted long courtesy of the unnerving sensation coming from his hands and his chest both. He felt like a lecher perving on the disembodied bouncy bon of some invisible lady, and that said lady was going to turn around and slap him 6 feet into the ground any moment now. But on the other hand, he was also pissed off the top of his head, and if he could just find the mug of the freak whose hands were groping his still manly chest, he was going to break that lil bastard a new nose. During all of this mad cat chases its tail, Naruto was sure that he must appear a nut to anyone who might be watching. He could see it, clear as day, in his head, a Senju sentry poking his partner under their leafy camouflage with one palm up. $50. Told ya that one's got a few loose screws. In the end, he stopped, pulled out the bandages from his legs, and with it tied a crude halter neck around his troublesome lady lumps. Despite his best efforts, they kept spilling out and pinched their pink-topped nipples. Damn, were those suckers sensitive. And damn it, he did not like being on the receiving end, on the thin cotton strips. But for now they would have to suffice. The big shocker, however, didn't come until the morning of the 2nd day, when Naruto had woken up to the pinch of the nature call any healthy person after 16 gobs of river water and a full night's sleep would feel. He had untied his sash, pulled the front of his pants down a little bit, only to stand there stupidly with one hand curled in front of his open trousers, ready to take hold and aim the thing that was no longer there. Oh hell no. Never before in his life had Naruto been hit by a double whammy of both horror and wonderment of such force before. Wonderment at the fact that, Despite all odds, he had managed to delude and lead astray his conscious mind from the topic of his current body for over 2 months. And horror. Well, what was a guy supposed to feel when he woke up one day and found his membership card to the male club apparently confiscated overnight? Sure, he had seen it. His body. Sure, he had known it. Hell, he had even watched as the servant washed, scrubbed and dried it, female bits included, every day since the last 2 months with the fascination and meticulousness of a practiced surgeon of an Orochimaru lookalike. But somehow, the overwhelming amount of evidence failed to hammer the truth into his head and only managed to push him further away from it. It had all felt unreal. The servant's hands, like the hands of a ghost, hadn't registered on his senses. And for all that time that he was stuck with this body, before now, his normal everyday functions had only changed to the degree that he couldn't sleep on his stomach because of the flesh wedge, a little bit of extra fat, not that much different from a beer belly, on top of his chest. It had felt like watching a reality TV show with a woman main character, or playing a 3D RPG using a female avatar. He was inhabiting that body, yes. Those legs, thighs, and the thing between them were attached to his torso, yes. But they hadn't felt like they were his. With the manner of a man approaching a rather peeved-looking lion, Naruto inched one finger down, felt around the incredibly soft skin of his navel, up the slope of the Venus mound, and pulled on a fine blonde thread of hair. The twinge of pain in reply felt like a 50-ton punch right to his face, its impact compounded with the long-delayed realization and the vague awareness of how moronically he was behaving. It was like one of those old game shows where the host would ring the bell and signal for the confetti ball to blow right on top the stupefied by shock dude's head, and it went like an internal fire drill. Ding ding ding. We have a winner. Uzumaki-san, how are you feeling about your sudden death round prize? Let me remind you, the prize for this round is. Cue the girl in the two-piece bikini waltzing across the TV screen bearing a board with a big number on it, smile flashing and cleavage dipping to draw the audience's attention away from the ape-like expression on the winner's face. He had never liked those shows. They always tried to shark out the winners, and there was always one poor bastard who got in over his head, usually the one to get nailed in the sudden death round. He remembered wincing every time he saw that expression appearing on the screen, brows low and mouth hung and caught between, "Oh, that's real good." And, "Right, what's the catch?" Without a clue of what to do. Naruto was sure he had worn that face then, alone in the middle of a forest with his trousers open, hand curled and agonizingly empty in front of it. He had stood there for about 10 minutes or so until his bladder knocked him on his skull and very politely reminded him that, shock or not, it still had its business to attend to and that he better squat down now or else. He had squatted, screwed his eyes shut, and let his body do its business. He was dazed with a penicillin shot of surreality and humiliation both. In his mind, the voice of Kiba Inuzuka gonged, "Ha, women. What can they do? They can't even pee above grass head." This statement came around the time when Kiba, caught up with hormones and deep in the phase that all boys went through before becoming men, had felt the need to prove his masculinity by being a pig to the other half of the human species. The Inuzuka heir was in that phase for exactly 5 minutes when the unappreciative Kunoichi of Konoha and Suna had quickly and efficiently re-educated him. Though Kiba wasn't here and had absolutely nothing to do with Naruto's plight, that churning ball of frustration, anger, and confusion rolled without release in his stomach still. And then there was that tickle of green grass blades on his bare thighs and knees. Naruto had decided then and there that if he ever met Kiba again, and if he ever heard an encore of that grass statement, he was going to kick him so hard the Inuzuka would taste his own shit. On the third day, his brain had caught up somewhat to the sitch. It was a nightmarish biology class on the anatomical differences of men and women with his body as the teacher and he the unfortunate bastard stuck to the front row seat with the clock hanging up above, forever pointing at 11:59 a.m. Just one more minute till break time, but punk, we ain't gonna be near that anytime soon. The female human body had a different shape and structure, softer, rounder, with more fat disposition and less muscle mass than its male counterpart. Pelvic bones were different. Balance point was set lower. Thinner skin and bone. When he considered these points, it was easy to see why his body reacted the way it did. The differences weren't obvious when he was stuck and inactive back in the Senju fortress, but the moment he started running and jumping at high speed, they had practically splattered right into his face. Furthermore, there was his distorted vision. Theoretically, women had superior peripheral and night vision than men, courtesy of the double amount of corneal rod cells on their X chromosomes. The fact that his vision was no longer as far and good in broad daylight meant a change far deeper than simple surface additions and subtractions. Change of vision meant change of genetic material, of DNA and chromosomes, XX instead of XY, and it was far more worrying than the simple cosmetic transformation he had thought it was. Up until now, he had only thought it, not far from a switch of flesh suit, like putting on a pair of and tucking away the other male bit, perhaps a mistake caused by the trauma of both time travel and demon swallowing, and who knew what else was in the mix of Uchiha's secret jutsu and Toad Sage interference, and that deep inside, he was still male through and through. This revelation, however, changed everything. A new genetic code meant a wholly different person, meant that if he were to test his blood right now it would not turn up the same with the Naruto Uzumaki entry in the blood data bank in the future, meant that he now had a different brain structure, different number of connective neurons and cerebral tissues, a different biological cycle, more estrogen instead of testosterone, a different psyche, generative, and reactive system. And a whole herd of other things he didn't care to name. If before, he could, to some degree, predict the problems caused by this new body and attempt damage control, now he couldn't even begin to guess what this all meant to him. They would cause problems, yes. But how far? And how deep? And what could he do to counteract it? It wasn't like this had happened before. However, more important than any of that were the two questions: how? And why? If he were to think about it logically, his original male body possessed a single X chromosome from his mother and a Y from his father. If he was completely female now, double X's instead of XY, then just where did that second X come from? From his mother. Can't be. If that was the case, then he should have been turned into her clone. The mere fact that he still had his blonde hair and whisker marks vetoed this option. From this father. Impossible. The single X his father had, which came from the paternal grandmother, can only be transferred to a female offspring, which he wasn't before this Freaky Friday switcheroo. And despite the undeniable power of his regeneration, he doubted even it could create something out of nothing. The only viable source left then would be the bijus, which opened up a whole other can of worms. If that was true, then did that mean half of him was made of demon then? Was he a half-demon in term of biology? Could that even happen? The bijus were chakra monsters. This, on the other hand, was flesh and blood, 100% tangible and inheritable to any children he might father, mother, father in the future. Whatever the answer was, Naruto was sure that he would not like it. Then, there was the matter of why. Why was he turned into a woman in the first place? None of the previous Jinchurikis had spotted any outrageous modification to their bodies, including the Sage of Six Paths if the legends were to be trusted. Aside from a few quirks and extra powers, they had all remained true to their human forms and assigned gender. Why was he the only one changed? Why a woman? What could this body do that the original one could not? Why not some gigantic monster? Why not a fox or an Ushi-Oni? Why change him at all? Again he came up empty of answers. This, in itself, was a potential disaster waiting to happen. He had no doubt that his taijutsu, ninjutsu, reflexes, and reaction time were already impaired by the more obvious physical changes. To leave the root cause of them in the dark would be the equivalent of leaving a ticking time bomb in his own body. He had no idea what it all meant and what it could potentially further mutate into in the future. Better yet, he had no way to figure out the answers. Any sorts of examination he could think of required equipment and technology far beyond this time, perhaps even beyond his own time. Now more than ever, he needed the help of the summoned beasts, the slugs in particular. The moment Naruto figured this out, he wanted to stop and start grafting a connecting seal on the fly, right there. The consequences of such a reckless action stopped him, however. First, the ritual of forging a contract with the summoned beast realm was highly complicated, requiring a certain time, place, and chakra-receptive ink and paper. A crude seal carved into the earth, no matter the skill, would have more a chance of blowing in his face than opening the door to Myobokuzen Mountain. Second, he was a complete stranger to even the Toad clan at this point in time. Even the most pacifistic of them probably wouldn't take too kindly to an unknown human barging uninvited into their home. The only option available to Naruto, much to his chagrin, was still to find that damn backwater village and ask for direction to greater civilization. So there he remained at the end of the third day, walking along the river bank and mentally cursing the heavens in 7 languages. For all the distance he'd covered, Naruto had not seen a trace of human activity, no trampled grass beds, no broken branches, no smoke puffs of a nearby campfire. It was just him, the trees, the animals, and the goddamned river that kept going, completely clean of the telltale grease of human wastes. If his guess was correct, after 3 days of constant walking, he should be near the border now, and still there was no village in sight. This era really was the backlog of time to be so desolate of human settlements. He stopped at sundown, feeling that prodding need to give it a rest, if only for a few minutes. For a while, he stood under the tree groves inspecting the damage that a 3-day trek through a forest did to his clothing. The cream-white cotton, unlike the ninja fabric of the future, wore all of its wounds proudly on its face, bodily stains, dried animal blood, crushed grass, mud, dirt, wear and tear from tree branches. A concoction of the smell of smoke, sweat, and the indefinable but very recognizable odor of a person who hadn't bathed in 3 days straight emanated from him. And he had nothing else to change into. So the Senju clan head wasn't just a bastard, but a stingy bastard. It could also be the custom of this time, low hygiene and all that, but with the mood he was in, he'd go with stingy bastard. He sighed and approached the river, one hand already unclasping the straps of his armor. He wobbled left and right on his legs, still unused to the sashaying motion of his body. He couldn't remember just how many times he tripped or ran his face into something for the last 3 days because his hips decided to veer left where his feet went right and vice versa. What a ridiculous way of moving. Just how the hell did women walk with this? And in high heels. Just how did they run or fight without falling on their faces for that matter? The pendulumic swinging alone went against every principle of economic movement. Not only was it a waste of energy to make so many unnecessary dips and juts, it also gave away one's next move to the enemy. Not to mention, after all that bobbing and flopping, it was giving him the weirdest case of motion sickness yet. He got to the river bank without tripping, then threw the heavy armor off with a thud. His dirty shirt and trousers went to a small inland pond carved into the shore by the river. He sat in a long undershirt, feet submerged in cold water and watched as dregs and clumps of dirt filtered out from his cotton shirt and pants. It would take a while for the clothing to dry, during which he would get his needed rest. This place was as good as any for a campsite. He would make a bed up in the tangles of the tree branches, and along the shoreline he could see hoof marks of water-holing animals that ought to make for a good dinner. He heaved one big sigh and washed the fatigue and frustration from his face. Up above, the skies had darkened to a muted blue-gray. The moon hung low, a fat circle of bright new blood against the cold backdrop of the skies. He blinked. A harvest moon. Now, was it already near autumnal equinox? He leaned back on his haunches at the sheer size of it hanging so close to the earth. He suspected it was his new, female night vision, for the moon seemed larger and brighter than he'd ever seen. It pulsed from the skies, a disk of luminous light that looked back at him with a secretive gaze and a smile. And he could almost hear a hum from somewhere, like a song that hadn't quite gotten out of the singer's throat, as if it was calling out to him. Come up here. I'm lonely. Come play with me. I'll kiss you and wrap you in my heart. Come to think of it, wasn't the moon supposed to harbor the body of the Jubi according to legends? Didn't Madara try to? He never got to finish that thought. By the time his head hit dirt, Naruto was already out cold. The carrier wagon rolled into the Joki sawmill in River Harbor at exactly midnight. Standing in his place atop the wooden water wheel, Okabe pulled the crank stopper open and directed his men to the scaffold of the derrick. A dozen logs of wood were unloaded from the wagon, followed by Chihiro in her steaming cauldron of gruel. The moon hung over their heads, a perfect harvest moon that draped a silvery red sheen over the forest, the water cliff, and the sawmill below. It was not the honey light of day, but it would still enable them to catch the autumn flash flood and push their delivery date up at least 2 days. The lords of Kokyo City would be pleased. The men below him grunted, hee-ho, heep-ho, and pushed the logs into the derrick die. The crank strained. The wheel turned. Leather straps wound taut around wooden logs and lifted. Up to the side and down went one log, safely deposited into the river. Another 4 days and it would arrive safely at Kokyo's harbor. Another round of hee-ho, heep-ho. Bare backs glistened with sweat. Spullif, spullif, spullif. Okabe saw the 18-year-old Yasui veering towards Chihiro in her cauldron. He yelled from his scaffold. Hey, hey, get in line. We're not finished yet. The boy whined. Chihiro laughed, lifted the lid, and let the wind carry the smell of hot gruel all over the wood yard. Okabe heard his own stomach growling in response. All right, one more and we can have a rest. The boys whooped and cheered rowdily. One yelled out, beautiful goddamn night to you, foreman. And got several pats on his back for that. Okabe heaved a sigh between helplessness and geniality. Well, they were nearly done anyway, and the boys had been working since noon break. Plus, it really was a beautiful night. The mist hid most of the scenery, but that had always been the case on this side of the Joki Range. The cold climate and the regular rain tied a belt of constant mist around this part of the mountain. But tonight wasn't so bad. Okabe could still feel his toes and his stomach ulcers were at ease, and the clear moon made it that much better. His boys, hee-ho-hee-fo, ate another log into the river before whooping and breaking ranks. Chihiro had taken out the bowls and was wielding her ladle like a lance at the horde of hungry boys heading to her bench. Beautiful goddamn night, indeed. Okabe thought as he surveyed the now near empty warehouse and wagons. For these boys, a good bed and a full belly constituted a beautiful night. But tonight was Okabe's. In 2 weeks, Kokyo would issue its checks, and that meant full bellies for everyone in the woodman's village till next year. Okabe laughed and climbed down from the scaffold to join in the raucous laughter and cheering of chicken meat. We got chicken meat. He could already see his wife and daughter plump and smiling in the new dresses and winter coats he'd buy them with the checks from Kokyo. And perhaps even a milk cow by the shed so that Mio wouldn't have to ride all the way into town for the milk, if they had enough money left. He was sure they would with the pushed-up delivery date. Yes, new dresses, winter coats, and milk that didn't cost an arm and a leg. He'd pinch his daughter's cheeks as he fed her warm cow milk. Okabe laughed again and made haste when he saw Chihiro waving her ladle at him over the boys' heads. The moon bore down and lit his path to the smell of food and cheering. They had 14 more seconds to live. The cauldron sat in the center of a circle of sweaty backs, yells, and clamoring bowls, filled to the brim with cream-white porridge. Okabe settled down next to Chihiro, taking great caution not to disturb her 7th-month bloated belly. She handed him a bowl, curling her arm over the reach, an indignant cry of Yasui, that's got the biggest piece of chicken. For old man. 8 seconds. Okabe laughed at the boy's antics. The others booed and whooped. 5 seconds. Chihiro swirled her ladle in the now half-empty but still steaming cauldron, heaving with difficulty under the weight of her pregnancy. 3. They laughed and cracked jokes about snooty Kokians, then wind of works yet unfinished. 2. The moon bore down with brilliant red light. 1. Dot. 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 Chihiro heard it first, but not by a large margin as the others followed seconds later, perhaps not so much hearing it but feeling it in the way the air suddenly weighted down like rocks on their shoulders and congealed into a cold, viscous veil. What's that? She raised her head, eyes wide, and looked back and forth between the river and the wood. Then she found it. A sound, whoop 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 whoop, like the beating wings of a great beast uncurled from the other side of the river. Okabe shivered. He pulled his coat tighter around him. An inexplicable chill slithered up his old bones. He stood up from the bench to get a better view but did it so suddenly that he knocked a clay bowl over. The porridge splattered and spilled in a mess at their feet but no one paid it any attention, not even Okabe as he wiped the burn off his hands. They stared into the pitch dark, bewitched by the non-stop chant of strange sounds. Something is wrong. A thought filtered through the drowsy veil of Okabe's mind. Strangely, the foreman was not at all alarmed. It was as though he was dreaming, a communal dream with a dozen other villagers, and thinking while doing so. He felt a touch of fear on his mind but it was the slow sleepy fear of dreams where one ran in a never-ending corridor, chased by unknown monsters. No one is reacting. They aren't screaming. They aren't afraid. It's strange. It was true. The woodsman stood in an unnatural quiet. Spilled porridge and broken bowls lay at their feet, gazes glued to the other side of the river, ears cocked to the strange sounds and waited. We should run. Instincts told him, instincts born from 40 years surviving the wild and 5 years of conscripted army service. But he didn't want to. No. Something kept him. The sound. No. More. Only then did he notice something else underneath that slow and continuous whoop whoop whoop. A voice. Humming, singing, crooning, its laughter rich and beckoning. Come, it said, Komi, to me. A series of noises tore through the forest, like thunder striking the earth. It was a sound any woodsman would recognize even in his sleep, the boom of trees falling down, leaves and branches screaming, the sound of cascading tsunamis on their head, and it tugged at Okabe's mind with its familiarity. Quick! Somebody yell, timber, or we'll get crushed. But the other part of his mind was screaming back. I don't want to be here. Something's coming. Something big, and hungry. Run, run. Another sound of thunder struck the earth as, this one close enough that they could see its silhouette from the other side of the river as it fell to its death. Okabe saw it then. A white figure emerged from the bowel of the forest, small, too small for the sheer terror that froze them to their places, yet somehow even more horrifying because of it. This was a monster far above brute force and size, that had absolutely no need for them. More trees fell around it, towering grandfather oaks roaring into a noisy end. Let it be crushed, thought Okabe, let it be crushed. Any of those trees, even the smallest, would do the job. It wasn't that much taller than Chihiro, and no bigger than any of the boys employed to him. As if it could hear him, the thing, monster beast abomination, raised its head and looked straight at him, its shining blue eyes hypnotizing under fluttery blonde hair. Come, it said, hungry. Okabe's first step landed right on half of a bowl, his own, and broke it once more into little pieces. He registered the sharp twang of pain from his feet, but it was an insect bite compared to the scalding pressure that was squeezing and pulling him onward, as if someone had hooked metal wires into his mouth, nostrils, and eyes and was pulling at it, the way farmers pulled cattle to the slaughterhouse. A wall of bobbing, swaying bare backs was in front of him, marching a slow drag towards the river, onto its bank, then into it. Their feet crunched a monotonous rhythm on the trampled grasses and pebbles. The river shone a silvery, scaly sheen, not from the water, but from fishes, small and big, carps, daces, black bullheads, belly up and in such huge number that they made a thick weave on the river surface. A quiet plop and the first woodman's foot was in the water, wobbling over the jagged riverbed. Goto, Okabe realized, youngest one of the bunch, and the laziest. The boy's back muscle spasmed, overrun with sweat. The intertwining stink of fear, blood and feces. A large yellowish-brown stain spread on the bottom of his pants. Turn back, you fool. Turn back. No one heard Okabe. Not even himself. Another joined the young woodsman in the river, Yoon. He slipped, fell, and banging his head on the bank, struggled for a second before crawling on all four, mindless of the nose-high water and the gaping hole on his skull. A thought zipped across Okabe's head. We're going to die. He shuddered violently. Here, now, like this, with his little daughter at home, sleepily waiting for him and Chihiro. Okabe was the last of the line. As he watched helplessly, one by one, the woodsmen headed into the river, their legs disappearing first into murky water, then waists, then shoulders among the floating dead fishes, then the top of their heads, then vanishing altogether. A moan sounded from Okabe's right, a woman's moan. From the peripheral edge of his eyes, Okabe saw Chihiro walking the slow drag beside him, her fists clutching the wet hem of her skirt. Liquid ran down her thighs and calves. Not pee. Birth fluid. The first bloom of blood unfurled on her skirt, just below the bulge of her protruding belly, and crept down the length of her legs in one thick red line. Oh, Og. She looked at him, eyes wide and begging. My baby, our baby, do something. Do what? What could he do? Another red line appeared beside the first one. Chihiro started crying. Her lips trembled as he stared back at her. No, not like this. With all the strength left in him, Okabe heaved his whole weight to the right. His body leaned like a felled tree. His legs staggered beneath, 1-2 steps until he was dragging in front of Chihiro, his large, 40-something-years-old woodworker body hiding her from view. From the other side, the thing looked at him, not angered or irritated, but amused, curious. Its blue eyes shone the fascination of a petulant child wondering what he should do with the ant under his thumb. Drop it into a frying pan and watch as it ran and danced its way above the fire. Or drown it in liquid glue. Don't you look at her, he screamed at it, don't you dare look at her. It tilted its head in answer, as if it heard, then smiled. Okabe knew what was coming. He could taste the salty mixture of sweat and mucus running down his face and lips. Moonlight filled the clearing with soft and glittery yellow and rose. Okabe took one last look at the sawmill and the wood lodge. He screwed his eyes shut and focused on Chihiro's quiet breathing at his back. He saw his daughter asleep on the windowsill back home, the warm fire under a steaming stew pot in the middle of the room, the new crib he made in the corner, draped over with fleece and wool. He heard Chihiro's crying out. He felt the pressure lift from him. For a moment he was weightless, floating in total darkness, then his head exploded in pain as it hit something. He sank down. His eyes flew open at the impact. He saw the copper brim of the cauldron first, then Chihiro's back. She was walking away from him. Her small, white feet printed bloody footprints on the ground. A headless body walked next to her. Its hand held hers. The world rolled. Moonlight. Roaring trees. Whipping in the air. His boys crawling up the other side of the river. Chihiro walking away from him, walking away with some other man, wearing a red wedding dress. Finally he could open his mouth. He wanted to say something, curse, scream, but nothing came out but spurts of blood. His larynx stuck up like tree branches from the neck of the headless walker. He sank down further into the cauldron, further until the hot gruel was under his eyes, then further still. Then nothing. When Naruto woke, his eyes were already open. The world came into his vision like cut-off movie frames, the type they used in old theaters nobody went to anymore, blotchy, displaced, and slatted over with grainy brown spots. The skies bled onto his eyes the color of a raining morning. A dog-eared moon slowly melted into its gray-blue canvas. A few more seconds then his mind kicked in with a question. What happened? Then, where am I? He reached for a memory. Had he fallen asleep while washing his clothes? Did he fall, hit his head on something and pass out? Or was he chewed on and spat out by some sneaky wild animal, but all he found was empty white space? Unsure of what to do or if he was really awake, Naruto lay still and waited, floating in a vague sense of half-consciousness. It was pouring, he noted when his skin faintly registered tiny cold drops. He shivered instinctively. His tongue tasted the strangely salty rain. Then he realized he wasn't breathing. His first reactive inhale sliced through his nostrils and lungs with all the sharp edges of a chainsaw and jerked him fully awake. He drew a second breath, thrashing wildly as his lungs swelled and his brain ebbed and pulsed with the incoming rush of air. He had about 1 second to wonder why the hell was it that he was still alive before a string of chokes jerked through him. His nose ran thick, heavy liquid. Blood. Not his. Something was stuck deep in his throat and his gullet was kicking up a fit over it. He beat at his chest. A single, gnawed-on eyeball popped out from his mouth, covered in spit and bits of crusted crimson. It dropped down his chest, and rolled small circles on his belly, looking up at him with one dark brown pupil. What the? He sprang up as if burnt. The ground bounced under his weight, bobbing like gelatin. His legs wobbled before his feet slipped on the fresh human entrails. He tumbled and fell. When he got up, his mind was jarring a firehouse wail. He took a step backward, back ramrod straight, feet askance like he was going to fight. He took 2 more. He made it all the way to the edge of the clearing. A wet lumpy tree stump cut off his exit route. The rain poured down his head and washed the sticky membrane off his body. The red crust under his nails and between his toes thawed and drifted off. He stood there for a long time and looked at the place where he had lay just minutes ago. It had felt warm and soft, safe. He felt the bile rise in his throat but he couldn't yet fully believe it. He'd like to think he was hallucinating, but he had seen far too much to think he'd be that lucky. He looked down at himself to check. Female, bare feet, red water racing down the columns of his legs, then turned back up again. Large black trees, not standing up but dead on the ground, walled in a round clearing of maybe half a mile wide. In the middle sat an anarchic rising of flesh, bound, wound, bent, and strung up, protruding from the earth like a one big bird's nest made of human branches. The rain made a pool in the center of the nest, where he had snuggled up to the bodies and slept. Streams leaked out through the cracks and drew spider veins on the ground. Bits and pieces of human drifted with the veins. Guts, hair, feces, a tooth. The leg of a woman jutted out from the brim. Her soft female curve stood out among the brutish male muscle welded into her. She too was stripped, her long, lean back facing him, half of her head missing. Her hair drooped down to cover the gaping hole in her skull. The strands washed along the water and white-gray tissue. 1 strand. 2. Naruto was glad he couldn't see her face. The bile in the middle of his throat made an upward leap. Somehow, through the rain, he could still catch the smell and that alone raised a memory. A taste. The ghost of a taste. But for 1 split second, it overtook him. His tongue moved, swerved, licking the teeth and the ribbed roof of his mouth. His jaws chopped a chewing motion. Salty, waterlogged, a hint of porridge and chicken, and some mud. The human meat flipped and wriggled in his stomach like cut-off gecko tails. Alive. Almost. And then it was gone, swallowed by the roiling prequel of vomit. He doubled down, his chest heaved heavily. He gripped his mouth and throat with his hands. No, not now. He didn't want to know what they looked like. He had seen the eyeball. What else was in there? Later, when everything was digested, when it would look like a puddle of shit, yellow and brown. He pinched his nose and breathed through his mouth. 2 slaps to his face brought stars to his vision, but at least he felt slightly better. He panted and shivered, his eyes glued to the ground. Then he turned, felt the tree trunks with his hand, jumped and ran. He ran like a madman. His vision tunneled forward where he could only see a carpet of felled trees and an unobstructed sky. The nest chased him, reached out to him with its tangled hands and legs, touched his back with its fingers. Where Chu going? Where Chu running to? It asked. He didn't know how long he ran till his feet, the silly female feet that didn't know how to walk and run properly, caught a snag and propelled him into a freefall. He screamed as he fell, thrashing through a barbed wire of brittle black branches. Then he hit the river. The fall brought a shock to his system. He broke through the surface with one hand on his mouth. Calm down. Calm down. Oh God. For fuck's sake, it's only a few more corpses, get a hold of yourself. He had seen worse. Any ordinary war veteran would have. But the taste hadn't left. It clung on his tongue, insidious as a leech. Blood vessels popped like baking corns under his teeth, he sucked down their content. Abruptly, Naruto put his hands under the water, clawed at the riverbed, and brought up a scoop of mud and moss slime. Without so much as a wince, he stuffed the mud and slime ball down his throat and swallowed in one gulp. Not enough. He could still detect a hint of salt and copper. He brought his hands down again, came up with another ball. Still not enough. Another. He gorged down handful after handful of mud until he was full to his eyeballs with it. If he vomited now, he was sure it would come out clotted black instead of brown-red. His mind was blank, not the blank of silence but the blank of white noises, of 100 thoughts clamoring for attention at once. It was the sound of a hailstorm under a tin roof, and at this time, after seeing what he saw, it was just too much. Naruto fumbled in his mind, found the switch, flipped it off. He heard the noises died down one by one. There. Much better. Don't think about it now. It is useless to think about it. Focus on something else. On survival. This is no time for emotions. He found another switch, the emotional one, the one that was screaming its head off, and shut that one up too. He had learned how to button flip himself 4 years after Sakura died. It was either that or go crazy. Then he let the harmless, rational thoughts come in. Something happened. Surely. He didn't eat them. Those humans. Normal. Not shinobi. Civilians. Innocents. They were dead now, as dead as could be. Something happened. What? The river. He was at the river, washing his clothes, planning dinner, preparing a place to spend the night. And then, he lost consciousness. The moon. The big fat moon that swallowed the skies in brilliant red and purple light. And then, nothing. There was nothing in his mind in between the 2 points. He remembered sitting on the river bank in nothing but a flimsy white underdress as the night approached, then the next he was waking up. It was morning, right after. Several days after, or even longer than that, and his bed mates looked like the output of humans through a meat grinder. No. He laid a hand on his belly and called up the suppressing seal. The ink surfaced on his skin, not crisp black but a fragmented brown. It was pushed near its limit, too near in fact. Below that, he could feel something bubbling, swelling, pushing on the inner walls of his body. He drew in one long inhale. The air felt cold and heavy in his lungs. So what was it? The bijus. All 9 of them. Some fragments of the 9-tailed fox that had somehow survived. The legendary 10-tailed beast itself. Or something else altogether. Monster. Did chakra beasts even need to eat? He stared at his belly, ignoring the twin swells above it. So what the fuck are you, huh? He probably should get up and get out, but the coolness of the river had a calming effect on him. It put a lid on frustration. The gentle lapping of the waves were almost licking away the heat of a vague but bone-deep fear. He sat there for a long time, concentrating on breathing, in out, and the deep drumming rhythm of something else inside him. Yeah, like it's going to answer any of your questions, just gonna pop up out of the blue, wave its hand at you and say, "Hey, buddy. Sorry for the mess. The party last night was wild, man. You shoulda been there. You shoulda seen me. All these babes, ya know. All the meates." But he listened to it anyway. Silence engulfed everything, an unnatural silence for a forest, no bird chirps, no calls of the local wildlife. The wind, too, was still and frozen into something tangible in the air. He sat until a grayed-out sun went up above his head. Then finally, His internal drone kicked up on itself. Get up, Uzumaki, it said, you've got stuff to do. Whoever those people were, they're dead now, dead as doornails. There's enough you can do for them, and sitting there doesn't solve zilch. You got one big parasite in you and you done know what it can do. So get up on your and start looking for a village, for their village in fact. Gotta be some place they produce those, don't it? Find the village, find the city, get a way to contact the toads, that's still the one ticket you're allowed to have. He cleaned off the caked dirt on his lips and in his mouth, gave his own head a good dunk to wash out bits of bowels still stuck there. Can't go greet shell-shocked villagers with guts as hair accessory now, can we? Then got up. He hesitated at the flaking seal on his body. It looked like it would collapse if he so much as blew a cage buncheon, but fixing it, and probably turning its suppression up at its highest meant no chakra molding, meant no jutsu at all. He shifted on his feet, uneasy at the thought of defanging himself, but if he left it like this, there would be no telling if or when he'd go on monster mode again. He persisted for another second, but he knew his choice was made. He sighed as he felt the effect of the seal on him. It was like the full-body model of a dental brace. Then he looked up and eyed the vague outline of a man-made structure far upstream. A harbor. It turned out that it was both a harbor and a sawmill, an old-style upstream port where cut timbers were prepared and carried downstream to their destination, a save on cost, labor, and time. There was a head in the cauldron in the middle of the wood yard, and happily swimming in it was a family of maggots. Outside of the sawmill was a dirt road with traces of cartwheel prints still on it. Naruto found a bundle of worker-happy coats on one of the benches, still wet from the morning rain. He pulled out the cleanest-looking one and put it on. The hem of the man-sized coat ended at his mid-thighs, just about enough decency to venture into a village. He'd have to steal something else when he got nearer. He followed the road. The first corpse turned up about half an hour into his walking, intertwined with another behind it. Men, clothed, in different states of decomposition, one had a wood hook buried into the other's neck. He stopped only long enough to register the faint twang of chakra traces, his chakra traces. Another corpse turned up in the next 5 minutes, woman, half submerged in a water ditch, eyes already picked off by carrion birds. He felt dread pool like liquid ice in the pit of his stomach. Then the road opened up, the village he was looking for came into view, a charred black thing, swathed in smoke and flying embers. He saw the bodies first. It was hard not to with the way they peppered the ground, some already burnt to a crisp. It wasn't a large village, just a dozen houses and one communal hall, and seeing how the sawmill was connected directly here, probably a settlement for the worker's family, a woodsmanville. He a broken spade with his foot. Burned to the ground. What happened here? Naruto was wading in a carpet of soot and sludge when he heard a sound. A human's cry. A child's cry. Where? He jumped over the wreckage of a fallen beam, trying to locate the source of the sound. He found it, strangely enough, coming from a house in the outer perimeter of the village. It was a small, one-room cottage, made of more thatch than wood. At one point, it must have been lighted up with fire, just like the other houses, but the rain and its detachment from the main cluster of the village had saved it midway. It was tottering on its post, barely standing up. From the doorway, he saw the child in the middle of the room, a boy no older than 8 sitting next to a face-down corpse in a bloody pool, his hands around himself, and rocking to the beat of his own hiccuping. The roof beam above groaned. Half of it was eaten by the fire, and the other half by time and rain. It was going to give out. Hey! The boy kept his head down as if he didn't hear. A strange wailing emitted from him. Naruto tried again. Hey! You need to get out. Still no reaction. And the roof was popping spider web cracks. God damn it. He eyed the roof once before jumping right in. He landed next to the child, finally startling him out of his stupor, wove his hands around him and, with another bound, jumped out. Something snapped behind him. The house groaned, that was all it could take, and collapsed. Geez. Hey, you okay? He set the boy on his feet. Stupid question. What sort of kid would be okay after seeing his whole village burned itself to death? Was that your mom? He knelt down on one knee and started checking the boy for any serious wounds. He took care to speak in a soft, almost whispery voice. Don't go Hokage, or even ninja on him. God knows the kid doesn't need that. He couldn't remember the last time he was so close to a child before, and he sure as hell couldn't remember how to treat them the way they were supposed to be treated. They didn't exactly grow those on the battlefield. No sir. No child soldier for us sir. At least that was one thing he was sure he did better than his predecessor. He didn't push 12-year-old kids on the front line and watch them get butchered and fried by them bigger boys. The boy shook in his hands. Finally, he looked up at Naruto. His eyes were swollen under messy bangs of dirty blonde hair. He mumbled something, then held out his hands. Naruto blinked, almost took a step back. In the boy's arms was a mess of red and slime, a slab of flesh that looked like what they threw away at the meat market. Then the meat opened its mouth, showing tiny rows of white teeth, and wailed. The fuck? He jumped at its wailing. It wasn't the boy he heard since the beginning, it was he eyed the umbilical cord trailing behind. That was the thing that snapped when he jumped. A newborn, from a dead woman. Please, said the boy, it's brother. What? Please. She hasn't. The boy was staring with his tennis ball eyes, the wailing babe held out in his hands. Naruto followed the boy's gaze, landing right on. Oh, look. Kid. Naruto pulled his coat tighter around him, hiding his lolling from view. I'm not what? Woman. Good luck explaining that to an 8-year-old child. He held his arms around himself, suddenly feeling very ridiculous but also very aware of the way the boy's eyes were still fastened to his chest. The boy took a step forward, as if he was afraid that Naruto might run away, and kept looking at him with that starved dog expression. Naruto was very tempted to take a step back. In fact, he wanted to take several, turned his back, and hightailed out of this place, needed direction be damned. But something held him. Inadvertently, he glanced back at the house, or what was left of it. The mother was dead. Listen, I'm not. He tried again, and failed horribly. The wailing babe was now a ripe purple color, its skin wrinkling around its unopened eyes and its gaping mouth. It was very clear that it wasn't going to survive if not given the proper attention. Oh God. All right, give it here. He wheezed out at last. Whatcha you doing Naruto? Whatcha you doing? You really don't mean to do it. Do ya? No. He didn't know what he was going to do. He didn't know a damn thing. Naruto received the babe in shaky arms and felt like somebody had torn him in two and was setting the two parts to a dogfight. He sank to his knees, then on his butt on the ground. The brother sank with him, watching attentively. He suppressed a shudder as the newborn squirmed. It had stopped crying and was now sniffing at him. One tiny hand touched the flat center of his chest, then the other. He held it awkwardly, almost away, but the babe had an inbuilt radar for warmth and protection, for the sound of his heartbeat. He fought against the urge to throw it away and watch it die. From this point, it didn't look like a baby. It looked like tumor, or a dog with the way it was sniffing for the scent of milk and maternal sweat, a hairless dog dripping blood and birth fluid on him. This is not my body, he thought to himself, as if to reaffirm, this is not my body. It's just a temporary vessel, a tool, to use, like a kunai. So use it already. It was easy to think that way, but not so easy to sit there and not react to the urgent pawing on his chest. The newborn found his at last and it bit right in. He winced at the twinge of pain. There was nothing there. The newborn released him, sniffed pitifully, and started wailing again. See, there's nothing there. I never had a baby. There's nothing for your, he told the brother, then stopped short at the way the boy was looking at him. For a moment, he felt pinned under the boy's gaze. He swallowed. There was a way. There were several ways actually. Galactagogue, a substance that promoted lactation in human. Hormone manipulation by hitting certain chakra tenketsu. Even simple prolonged kneading used for difficult new moms or older women, or couples with certain practices. He knew how, had never done it, but probably could without much trouble. Don't mean you have to do it, right, Naruto? He almost nodded along with the thought. It would be very easy, rational and clinically clean-cut even, to administer one of those on himself, feed the babe, save it from obvious death, then get on with his business. No harm done. No fusses. No lost time sitting on his butt in a, who'll blink first, competition with a child. But, something in him stirred, some primal part that couldn't bear the thought of letting himself be touched again by that monstrous newborn. Look at it, Naruto. Look at all those purple spots. Look at the blood on the navel and the uncut umbilical cord. Look at its feet. He looked. Infection. It's going to die anyway. Whether you're going to do it or not. What's another one, huh, Naruto? Like you haven't killed 100 others since you were 15. What's another one? He drew in one breath, lifted the baby. Here. I can't do it. He almost looked at the boy. Don't do it, Naruto. Don't look up. Once you look up, he'll nail you with that face again. They always do, Naruto. I don't know about how you go on denying all this stuff. But it's real. This body is real and I've felt it, Naruto. I felt the servant's hands on my body and I felt the scratches in the hollow where it wasn't before, and I damn well felt that little sucker's teeth on my nipples. I don't know how you felt and I don't give a damn about your, use it like a kunai, thingamabob, but this is my body. This is my body. This is my fucking body. Little hands closed around his and around the baby and pulled. Quote. Please. He made the mistake of looking up. Perhaps he had wanted to look up. He was eye to eye with the boy and suddenly he was blinded with light. Now he was in a different place with a different boy looking up at him. Hey, Pa, called the boy. The sun shone behind him, bleaching his black hair into gold orange. Hey, kiddo, he replied. Can we play ninja, please? The please stretched out like bubblegum with a wet raspberry at the end of it. The child clung to his leg, waving his toy shuriken. He looked just like his mom. Naruto laughed and was about to comply. Hokage-sama, the Anbu at his back prodded, meeting in 15. Quote. Sorry, kiddo, maybe next time. Then the light ended and he was back in the clearing, sitting in front of a bruise-faced boy. His mind was strangely blank, as if there was nothing there. Funny, it was like the nameless boy knew where all of his flips and buttons lay, knew exactly how to shut them off. FWIP, there goes instinct. FWIP, sensation. FWIP, ah, my bad, I fucked up your house. Now it's full dark, no stars. He was running barely on command, on autopilot. He dropped the baby to its brother. One moment. He peeled the coat collar off to reveal bare shoulders. 2 points under the shoulder blade, 3 on the stomach, 1 in the back of the throat. He suddenly felt bloated. He started kneading just for extra measure. When he took the babe the second time, there was no more wailing. He was thankful that right now, everything he felt was dulled into muted tickles on his senses. He heard screams too, in the back of his mind, but he paid it no attention. Instead he turned and regarded the boy. He rocked the babe gently as he started a conversation with its brother. So, no chatting about the village or dead parents here. What else could he ask? Quote. What's your name? Quote. Hanzo. And there they were, a thin strip visible in the swollen eyes, the reverse color irises. Dark on the outside, light on the inside. Quote. Oh, nice name. Quote. T. Thank you. Quote. So, do you like salamanders? The boy looked at him as if he'd grown a second head, and only after a long pause did he reply. Quote. No. Then as an afterthought. They taste bad. Fishes are better. He laughed a little bit, mostly on reflex, partly to calm the boy. First Hashirama Senju, now Salamander Hanzo. And what the hell was somebody like Hanzo doing in this woodville? Shouldn't he be somewhere with a clan of his own? All questions Naruto had no answers to. All questions he was sure a certain toad would be squeaking out, whether he wanted to or not. But one thing at a time, for now, he had a baby and a kitty future ninja legend to care for. The thought scared him. It had been so long since he was responsible for anyone else besides himself. But it passed. Then he sent Hanzo to find him water, made a fire, and started cleaning the baby. Another child appeared around noontime, a girl, barefoot, and wearing a checker blanket over her head like it would protect her from the world. The shameless howling of her stomach let Naruto know she was drawn out by the smell of food. The girl child stood by the peg leg of a burnt-down house, tried her best not to look like she was spying on them, and failing spectacularly. From her not-so-innocuous glances, he deduced she was trying to think up a plan to steal the food. He would have smiled if she didn't look so pitiful. This one, he thought, would not make a good Rakan nin. He kept his eyes at the crackling fire in front of him and pretended that he didn't see her. Above the fire was a stewing hotpot of dried fish, cat's ears, and rice. Very much to Hanzo's relief, they really weren't going to have salamanders for meal after all. He picked up a bowl, filled it and put it in her direction. Then he went back to what he was doing before, rocking the sleeping baby and watching Hanzo wolfing down the stew by himself. He didn't have to wait long. About 2 minutes later, he heard her footsteps. Smart girl. He said nothing, did not even look. In front of him, Hanzo shifted uneasily. He studied her as she ate. Brown hair, brown eyes. She wore what looked like a sleeping dress with one snagged corner. The blanket hung from her head like a tent. When she was finished, she looked him in the eye and muttered a quiet, "Thank you." "What's your name?" Hinamori, daughter of Okabe, son of. He tuned out the rest. The name called up something from his mind. Hinamori, he tested the sound on his tongue. No, that wasn't right. That wasn't how she was called. Hinamo, Mio, the last one almost like the sound a cat might make. They had called her that because it sounded almost like Mo, and because she loved milk. How did you? The girl stammered and jolted him out of his thought. Yes, how did he know that? He paused for 1 second. He had several guesses. Unimportant. Disturbing. He decided to sidetrack the child. How old are you? 10. No. 11. 11. That was younger than him when he made Genin. He laid a hand on Hinamori's shoulders, then in the gentlest voice he could make. Mo, will you tell me what happened here? The girl stilled under his hand, trembled. Then she began to talk between bursts of sobs. Apparently, this place really was called Woodsmanville. Mo had lived here since she was born and so did Hanzo. 5 days ago, her parents and the main workers had stayed late to finish a shipment to the big city. When they didn't come back the next morning, the village had sent a boy to find out if there was trouble. The boy hadn't come back, neither did several next ones they sent. Finally, they sent a team up. One came back, but he was strange. All jittery and stuff. And he spoke in this ugly guttural voice. A few days passed and then suddenly every adult in the village was strange. Then last night, the killing started. Mo had barred the door and hid in her parents' bedroom. She had stayed under the bed until she heard everything go quiet and had only come out when she couldn't bear the hunger anymore. And that was the end of her story. So, for 5 days Naruto was out cold and someone else had rode in his current body. The rest wasn't hard to patch up from the sobbing girl's narration. What he needed to know was what to do now with the 3 orphans he suddenly found himself with. What's your family name? He asked absent-mindedly, intending to keep the flow of the conversation. He did not know that question was a bomb. Family name. You have a family name. Mo stuttered, her eyes wide. I knew it. Hanzo sprang up from his seat. You're a ninja. Naruto blinked at the sudden accusation. Mo sobbed louder. Quote. No. Don't talk about them. Mama said ninja are bad people. Then she looked Naruto over with her wide brown eyes. You're a princess, are you? Nobles have surnames too. Royal, nobles, samurai, and ninja. But you're not bad. You're very pretty. You must be a princess. Princesses don't wear that. Hanzo pointed at Naruto's ratted worker's coat. My father is a ninja, and he's not bad. My ma said he loved her. He'll come and take me away one day. You don't have a father. Nobody has seen him. Do too. You're lying. I'm not. Look at this. The boy was in Mo's face, showing off his eyes. I got this from my father. Nobody here has this. Shut up. I'm telling you to shut up. Your father left your mother. You and your sister have no father now. He's a bad person. All ninja are bad. Mo threw down her hand as if in command. Hanzo froze at her statement. Something cracked in the boy's expression, then he spoke, and this time it was not just childish quarreling in his voice anymore. I don't have to listen to you. My ma is not your family's servant anymore. What the hell do you know? What the hell do you know? The boy was screaming now. At least ninja are strong. They don't hide under their beds and cry when they hear their ma and pa die. Alright, that's enough. Naruto put himself between the two of them, one hand still holding the baby, the other hand on Hanzo's shoulders, hoping to calm the boy down. Mo, don't talk about other people's parents like that. And Hanzo. He stopped short as he saw the boy's face, 7, not 8 years old. The boy looked young, but not young. Overlaid on the baby fat of childhood was the ghost of death, of having witnessed it. Steel forged halfway, forged too early, neither here nor there. Teach me, said Hanzo, teach me, how to be a ninja. I wanna be strong. I wanna be like my dad. When I grow up I'm going to be just like him. Then I'll go and kill the one who did this to us. I swear it. For a few heartbeats, the clearing they sat in was quiet, not a pip heard. Then, Babe woke up and started crying. Naruto restarted his rhythmic rocking. He glanced between Hanzo and Mo, then stepped to the side. Unlike Hanzo, Mo's face was full of fear, but there was also something else, like she was seeing something on Naruto for the first time in her life, and though it looked nasty, she wanted it. She wanted it desperately. I'll think about it. He gave his answer at last, then he walked out on them. He walked listlessly past the ruined house and the burned corpses, a half-dead afternoon sun above his head. He kept near the trees or the beams in case his woman's legs and balance might fail him again. A small fish pond and a farmer's field was in the back of the village. He allowed himself one rare moment of release, bending down by the pond and throwing up everything in his stomach. The stew, the mud, the suspicious-looking bits. That felt slightly better, well, lighter anyhow. He couldn't describe what he was feeling now, a familiar sensation but one that was hard to comprehend. Something strange. Something. There was no answer in his head but a droning bomp, bomp, bomp. He had felt the same way when he and Sakura lay wrapped up in each other like two pieces of the same rope in the aftermath of the Battle of Cam Latch, as if they were fresh from making love, but then Shikamaru just had to walk by and pull Sakura's dead body off him, asking, "Did she give it to you?" Give what? Her brain. We ain't gonna get another medic like that. Quote. Fuck you, Nara. I don't give a shit anymore. Well, you should. Then Shikamaru pulled him up, and he had to remind himself that it was not proper for the Hokage to break his main strategic advisor's nose. Especially not after losing half of his force in the biggest trap hole on this side of the universe. Her upgrade of Chiyo of the Sans Kiso Tensei worked brilliantly. Not just the transfer of life energy, but also transfer of knowledge and partial chakra. She gave it all to you. You're the new head medic now, Lord Hokage. But Naruto wasn't listening to him. He wasn't even looking at Shikamaru. Naruto was staring at the dead Sakura. She hung like a doll on Shikamaru's shoulder, limp, cold. Then he said, I hate you, you bitch. You lied to me. You promised we're gonna be together forever. He went back when the sun had resuscitated him somewhat, only to find two faces staring at him from opposite sides of the clearing. Hanzo sat on one, nursing a black eye and mumbling under his breath. Mo didn't look much worse for wear except that she was crying and blowing her nose again, and her checker blanket was lying in tatters on the ground. Naruto sighed. They were young. Too young maybe, but they were also running out of time. All right, he said at last, I'll teach you. I'll teach both of you. But before that teaching, there were other things to be done. They salvaged whatever was left from the ruin in the late afternoon. Food, clothes, equipments, little knickknacks. The communal hall, the only building still standing in the entire village, was christened their new headquarters. By early evening, Naruto had already started rolling the corpses into a pile and covering them with a hemp sheet. They retreated back to the communal hall by night. The building, which was used for village meetings and public celebrations, proved too big, too hollow, and therefore, too scary for the children, but at least it was better than the outdoor alternative, with the rolled-up corpses. Naruto made a fire in the barbecue pit in the middle of the room and roasted them all a big dinner. They ate, chatted. There was little to talk about between three shell-shocked individuals, but they tried anyway. At least the sound would fill up the ghostly space somewhat. Before he put them to sleep, Hanzo and Mo both demanded a song. Because he didn't know any nursery songs, Naruto sang them a love song instead. And because he couldn't remember the beginning, he went straight into the middle. The song went like this. Jesus was a sailor. When he walked upon the water, he spent a long time watching from his lonely wooden tower. And when he knew for certain only drowning men could see him, he said, all men will be sailors then until the sea shall free them. That had prompted a row of dive bomb questioning. What is Jesus? I don't know. A forgotten god, I think. Where's his people now? Dead? Lost? Is he a ninja? Can ninja walk on water? Why was he lonely? I don't know. Please, let's just sleep. Naruto woke up in the middle of the night to the feel of two little bodies pressing on him from both sides. He halted his reflexive reaction to gut both of the intruders in time. Under the faint moonlight, he saw the children's eyes glistening. They were scared of ghosts, and he was the only living one there. That was no good. He wasn't used to sleeping next to anybody for a long time now, let alone squished together like this. He'd have to put a cold rain on his well-honed killer reflex every single time they so much as twitched. Then he felt little hands cling to his waist, and two warm heads worming their way into the space under his armpits. Ah. Oh damn. Well, maybe just this one time, but just once, alright. The next morning, Babe woke him up by peeing on him. And when the zombie sun crawled up the east side of the skies, Naruto already had something for the kids to chew on and was on his own in the village yard while digging up grave holes. Because he could no longer use his chakra, in particular, no spamming shadow clones to make instant slaves, the job was long and frustrating. He loaded each body into a shallow hole and filled them in with earth. He had made a dozen planks the day before, but the majority of them never got a name on. Mo and Hanzo could only recognize a few, and he didn't want them to look too long. When it came to Hanzo's mother, he sat the boy to a side and had a long talk with him. The plank, under which rested the bits and pieces Naruto had managed to wrestle from under the cabin wreckage, was engraved with these lines. Mom, your son loves you. Baby lives. He contemplated going back to the place where he had woken up and take care of the corpses there too, but couldn't remember the way. That, and they didn't have much more time either. The weather was getting colder. It was near the end of autumn. When winter came, they'd be boxed into this little dead town and, except for Naruto, the rest would probably end up dead little brownies too. Another night squished together. Another morning woken up by Babe. This time not pee but a pile of baby poo on Naruto's chest that sent Hanzo and Mo shooting away from him like rocket launchers the moment their noses awoke. Their departure was right on that morning. The destination was Kokyo City, which, according to Mo, was the only one that had always been there, and was the biggest city on Earth. Or at least, the biggest city she had ever seen. It had walls that reached into the skies and river gates to greet merchants from all over. It was the only port city between fire and rain. Why, it was even rumored to have a samurai lord who could shape sunlight into swords of different shapes. There was a person who knew her parents there, an innkeeper who would surely let them stay. Naruto digested this with a screen in his mind. A militaristic border city controlled by Chakra using samurai, most likely a hot zone then. Good, that meant information and that his band of refugees wouldn't stick out like sore thumbs amongst the native Kokians. He'd get the things he needed there and straighten out the situation with the 3 orphans. Though he hadn't said anything to them, he knew for sure that he couldn't exactly go on his revenge quest with 3 little kids in tow. By mid-morning, they were fed, packed, and standing at the village gate. The children were outfitted in coats and walking boots. Naruto himself had steered clear of woman traveling clothes despite Mo's protests. He was plainly goosebumped out of the idea. It had felt like peeling off the skin of dead women and slipping into them. Naruto had worn men's clothes instead, even though the smallest ones they could find were still slightly too big for him. So here they were, standing in the cold, misty morning. Naruto presented, "Babe," to her brother. "We need a name for her. I'm bad with names. Think up one. Hi, Haim. Oh, come on. Are you kidding me?" Hanzo and Mo had a brief fight before settling for a name that weren't too tacky, too dry, too girly, or too Hanzo-y. Nozomi. Hope. What they needed for their journey ahead. Naruto held the newly named Nozomi to his chest. The newborn's body was soft and malleable as fresh dough in his hands, and her skin smelled like new butter and melted caramel. Just how exactly she went from thrown away rotten meat to this was something he couldn't understand, even though he had witnessed every second of it. According to Hanzo, it was from all the milk she had been guzzling down, which was ridiculous because Naruto was sure he did not, in any way, smell like that. Then the sun was up above their heads, wearing a scarf made of white mist and green treetops. They said goodbye to Woodsmanville, exited the gate and ventured into the dark woods. A knight and a lady went riding one day, far into the forest. "Away, away, fair knight," said the lady. "I pray, have a care. This forest is evil. Beware, beware." Knight and lady, anon. "You sure it's a right?" "I'm sure." This sentence was spoken through 2 hiccups and the rasp of a runny nose. The girl's eyes were red and watery. Naruto looked down at Mo with barely suppressed exasperation. She had been crying ever since they left, all morning, then all noon. "Hanzo, can you get up that tree and have a look?" The boy nodded, then clambered up a tree like a monkey. "There's nothing up here. It's all mist," Hanzo shouted from the tree top. "I told you it's a right." Sniff. "I've been to Kokyo before." Sob. "It's all on the right. No left." "All right. We'll take the right turn." His band of refugees stood at the point where the road split into 2. One would take them to Kokyo in a week. The other would take them, somewhere. Between these 2 turns, there were no road sign, no chipped wood boards that said, Kokyo, and, some other place don't take it. The only mark was a pile of rocks shaped like a pyramid by the road. Not exactly the most illuminating clue. Curses and damnation that Naruto hadn't managed to ferret out a map from the ruin of Woodsmanville. Too bad that his only guide was an 11-year-old girl. Despite his best intentions, Naruto was nervous about trusting her stinted direction. Mo had gone to Kokyo only twice, and that was 3 years ago. They managed to steal another 2 hours before daylight ended. And for their first night out of town and only the second day since tragedy, the gloom of the dead Woodsmanville hung like a shroud over their camp. Naruto eyed the wilting boy and girl over the campfire. "So, you want to be a ninja?" That got him the attention he wanted. We'll start with this. He turned his wrist, twirling a kitchen knife between his fingers. He could feel the children's disappointment right away. They had been waiting for something flashy, something that screamed, ninja, the moment it walked on stage. Typical civilian misconception. Still, he went on, first, showing them the proper hold, how to grip, how to not hurt themselves, then, how to aim and throw. He let them try the knife on for size. It was made of scrap metal, rusty, and unwieldy even in his hands. It would have problems gnawing though a chicken's neck, let alone serve as a proper weapon. He watched the children fumble with it, feel it, and confirm its utter uselessness with their own hands. Only until their disappointment turned to dejection, did he pick up the discarded knife. Watch. He sent it flying cleanly through a thick tree branch over their head. Your first lesson. He put one finger under Hanzo's jaw and closed it with a snap. Ninja make the best of what they have. Apparently, that was all it took to renew a 7-year-old's enthusiasm. Hanzo practiced with the knife until his palms were red and raw, and even then, the boy held onto it, like it was a promise of what the future held. Someone to kill. Someone to repay pain to. That's good. That's the spirit. He rubbed Hanzo's head. The boy was what he imagined, some potential and a lot of determination. Salamander Hanzo had only come to renown when he was at middle age, old for a ninja, possessing a strength not from sheer overwhelming talent but from patience, hard work, and experience. That was okay. That worked too. Grow strong. One day, you might even be able to take me on and finish me. When that day came, Naruto wouldn't mind. The wild card, on the other hand, was Mo. She hadn't touched any of the knives, merely watched from the sidelines. At first, he'd thought, typical girls. Sakura and Ino at that age hadn't been interested in learning the ninja arts either. But then came the questions. What is it like, being a ninja? Well, he started. What is it like, indeed? My ma and pa said ninja do all sort of things. The word, things, was pronounced with a drag. They kill people that they never even met, and burn villages, and take women. She answered Hanzo's glare with gusto. Do you do that too? No, I don't. Not without some damn good reason. But he supposed that was what ninja of this time did. Mere swords for hire. Thugs even. We're not different from normal people. We have children too, and we love them. The children go to schools. Sometimes, we have festivals, big ones, and sometimes we sit like this. He gestured at their camp. And just have a good time. Hard to imagine. Mo nodded. The thoughts jarred in her little head. She had always thought of ninja as demon-like. They must be, or else how could they do the things she heard? Killing, and burning, and, what for? No good people would ever do that. People like her family, honest folks, who were dead now. But from what this strange lady was saying, they sounded so normal. That's okay. Naruto opened his arms to her, beckoning. It takes time. Mo inched nearer, shy. This person was a ninja. Do you also have children? Naruto blinked, surprised by the suddenly personal question. I do. One. A boy. Maybe it was the guilt, maybe the situation they found themselves in, or even Mo herself just a child, harmless, but Naruto found himself talking things he'd never let out to anyone. He'd be your age now. Even quiet Hanzo perked up beside him. A boy. A little ninja boy with a ninja parent, maybe even two of them, just like Hanzo. Where is he? Gone. Left me. Why? Doesn't he love you? Kids. They were smart enough to ask questions, but not enough so to know when to stop. Naruto opened his arms again. It's late. Go to sleep. This time, Mo complied. Come morning, Naruto's decision was made. He'd keep Hanzo, and discard Mo. Somehow, this decision made things easier. He had thought long and hard on what to do with the 3 tag-along kids. Children were fine, children like the Konohamaru Corps. He liked them, and he was responsible for the loss of their family, but he was also a ninja with a mission that he would complete at any cost. 1 week. That was how much time he would give them, and absolutely no more. It would take exactly 1 week to reach Kokyo on foot. The moment they were there, Mo would go to her relatives and Hanzo and his sister to the Toad clan. The children's thoughts of him were plain to see. Hanzo adored him simply because Naruto was the only link to his missing father. Naruto was a ninja. Naruto didn't see him as a freak. Mo was conflicted and confused. She found the idea that ninja can be good, normal people hard to swallow. She was curious, but that curiosity wouldn't last long. Ninja life wasn't for her. Nozomi was too young and too fragile to be handled by someone as inexperienced as Naruto. It would be the best choice for everyone. Mo would get her family. Hanzo and his sister would have a place that accepted and cared for them. And Naruto would be able to keep an eye on Hanzo and see how he should deal with the boy's contribution to the future. Once again, Naruto had changed the path of history, but he had never intended to keep history as it was to begin with. Perhaps he would keep Hanzo out of rain altogether, perhaps teach the boy a different way of thinking and indirectly steer the future rain in a different direction. He'd have the time for that decision later. Madara awaited. 1 week. That was the deadline. Yet, despite Naruto's wish, this deadline would be breached. They passed 3 more splits on the road, each with the same rock formation. It was on the 4th split that the promised 1 week ended. We're not at Kokyo. Naruto was standing ankle deep in mud and rain water when he said this, balling Nozomi deep inside his raincoat. The sun was setting over the horizon. The 7th day was ending, and there was nothing in sight except for trees and more trees. We could be near. Mo stuttered. Not possible. The road showed no sign of widening, lowering, or crisscrossing with other roads. Woodsmanville was a valley at the middle of a mountain range. A city as big as Kokyo could only be built on flat terrain. If they were anywhere near, then the road should have been descending the mountain height. More adjacent roads should have appeared if the border city really was as big a trade center as he was told. None of that had happened. Why won't you believe me? My father took me. It was all on right turns. Maybe just one more turn. That was when Hanzo found something. Look at this. The boy was inspecting small indents on a tree trunk. That's my foot mark. I climbed up this tree. They were right back where they started, the first road split near Woodsmanville. For 1 week, they had been walking in a circle. Mo looked at Hanzo like she was going to put a knife into him. That night, Mo slept alone. Naruto said nothing as the girl scooted away from him, Hanzo, and Nozomi, only handing her an extra coat and patting her head. Naruto was not angry. He was anxious. There was something very wrong going on here. In their week-long journey, they had turned right at every junction, only to arrive back here from the left side. Mo's direction was not wrong. The road itself was curved into a perfect circle, something no normal road would do. A road went from point A to point B. If the 2 points are the same, as was this case, then there was no need for one at all. In other words, this was not a road. This was a deliberate trap. Naruto was shocked to a standstill the moment he made this conclusion. The idea itself. A trap maze, spanning hundreds of miles in the middle of a forest. It was so ridiculous he had almost scratched it off his mind, but then, he started noticing other oddities. The trees, for once. They were short, scrawny even compared to the part of the forest where the sawmill was located. These trees here were obviously younger. And there was a certain pattern where they stood, as if they had not grown by themselves in nature but, planted, by human hands. Then, there was the location of Woodsmanville. Perhaps he was acting paranoid, but now that he had the time to slow down and inspect their surrounding, did he notice the way the hill town seemed to creep into the depth of the mountain itself? A perfect hiding place, but also a perfect prison. Before he had taken up Mo's directions, Naruto had climbed up to the village's highest point, the watchtower, to scout. That had resulted in nothing. Even the name of the village itself, Woodsmanville. Normal. Generic, maybe too generic. It was like the village was wearing a big sign on its head that said, "I'm normal. Trust me." Combined, the clues were pointing to some very uncomfortable truth. He needed to confirm this. Dot, dot, dot. It felt a little like defeat to walk through the burned gate of the now dead town. The orphans stood outside, looking in at the place that was once their home. The first sight to greet them was the row of grave markers. "Mom, your son loves you. Baby lives. Stay here," he instructed them before going in. There was one place he needed to check. He found the plantation field by the fish pond, untouched by the fire. Last time he was here, he was too distraught to pay it any attention, but now, the second he got past several rows of corns in the outer edge, he saw them. Poppies. Bulb-shaped flowers swayed in the wind. Miles wide. His question was answered. Woodsmanville was no lumberjack's town. Woodsmanville was the cover for a morphine plantation. It was only until he went back to the orphans that the weight of discovery took hold of him. He stood at the gate of the village, looking out. Their surrounding was exactly as it was 1 week ago, but at the same time, not. The mountain range embraced them, so tall they looked like they were eating up the skies, a flower of rocks and jagged edges raging against the heavens. Trees rose from the ground, a legion of them, their thin, brittle branches like bony fingers. And then, there was the mist, the everlasting mist that came and went with every rain, wedded to the mountains like lovers, never leaving the other. Together, they put a shroud over the road. Nothing less than a 90-degree and 1,200 feet high bird's eye view would be able to scout out the scope of the maze. "So, where do we go now?" Hanzo stared at him over a sleeping Nozomi's head, looking small and lost among the grave markers. "Yes, where do we go now? Either a dead town where starvation was the only outcome or the trap, which spanned hundreds of miles. If they were lucky, they might be able to decipher the structure of the maze before either their strength or their food ran out, but if not, we'll go." Naruto had his hands on Mo and Hanzo's shoulders, feeling the tremble, feeling their small bones and soft flesh. Back to the road. There was simply no turning back. The only way was forward. It took about 3 days for Naruto to come to the realization that he had sorely underestimated the complexity of the trap maze. 4 junctions. 4 right turns. And the road wound itself back to the beginning again. It must be an ellipse of some sort, an Ouroboros of the ground. The biggest challenge was to realize that they were walking in a maze, then the rest, though not easy, should be doable even to a ragtag group of wet and miserable orphans. As long as they marked every junction and every turn past, they should be able to make out the one correct exit. They took the right turn at the first junction, then left. Then the third day brought the fourth junction too early, which on the other route would have led them back to the start, but on this one produced a 5th junction. Then 6th, 7th, and then it became apparent that Naruto had been naive to think it a simple ellipse. It was a spiral. It was several of them, an untold number of them within each other, interlacing, crossing left and right, endlessly weaving their own secret code. The configuration of the maze had such an extreme complexity that it transcended itself into simplicity. Spirals. Just spirals, nothing fancy. Who would have thought? But that still wasn't the most dangerous thing. The maze's greatest weapon was not its frightening sophistication, but the way it tied circles around their heart and tightened in like a hangman's noose. In its core, this maze was a psychological weapon. For days, they trudged on without rest, without a goal, never knowing if they were going to make it. He could see the uncertainty killing the children slowly, eating the light from their eyes and the bounce from their steps. Every junction that turned up unmarked was another taunt. "Why are you still walking? Aren't you tired? Let your feet rest. Lay down and sleep. It will be peaceful. I'll take good care of you." To battle the maze's corroding effect, he sang to the children. He told them stories. He made them toys from branches, and taught them a game called Hop the Rocks. But Naruto himself was crumbling. He started questioning his earlier decision in the Senju territory, to wait until he could find a city. God damn. Why the hell had he done that? Why hadn't he just spammed a million shadow clones to keep himself spiffy when he still could? Or maybe just bulldozed over the Toad Clan's gate? What were a few angry toads compared to the future of the ninja world? Against all reason, he had decided to play it safe instead. And look where it had landed him, in the middle of nowhere, leg tied by 3 weepy kids, his first priority mission in jeopardy. And that was when Naruto froze. Play it safe. When had he ever played it safe? Wasn't he Naruto Uzumaki, the boy who jumped head first into battle without even half a plan to stand on? Play it safe. Wasn't that a little Sakura-like, woman-like? Then he remembered his brain, the not mine brain, the one that was chock full of female hormones. A few weeks ago Naruto had discovered he could no longer trust his body. At that moment, he made a second discovery. He could no longer trust his mind either. It happened sometime in the second week. Midday, but it was almost as dark as early evening. The rain had stopped 3 hours ago, but the road was still made of sludge. I can't walk anymore, Mo said. Then she stopped and plopped down in the mud. Beside Naruto, Hanzo muttered under his breath, "Princess. Come on, Mo. A bit more, then we will rest. I'll carry you." "No, I don't want to." The girl sobbed wetly. "Where are we going anyway?" "Nowhere. I wanna go home." She stood up, threw her pack at Naruto's feet, and started running the other way. Naruto opened his mouth, about to call her back, but at that exact moment he heard a sound that froze his insides. Growls. Shit. A dozen feet from him, Mo stopped. She had heard it too. From the depth of the forest, ice-gray eyes stared at them. Wolves. A whole pack. Mo, don't move. With incredibly slow movement, he slipped his hand into his coat, fingering the knife inside. He crouched, and stared back at the eyes, trying to draw their attention to him. A bark. Then 3 things happened at once. Mo screamed. The wolves lunged at her. Naruto leapt forward. The wolf's jaws were inches away from Mo's throat when it snapped shut around Naruto's arm. He pivoted on one foot and flung it to a tree. 1 down. In the same movement, he sliced the knife in an arc. Blood rained down on his head. 3. Hanzo. The boy jerked awake, then jumped and climbed up the tree next to him. Naruto yanked on Mo's coat and threw her away, then he held his wounded arm around the now awake and shrieking Nozomi. He brandished his knife at the rest of the wolves. 9 of them, bearing their bone-white fang, hungry and furious. Instead of worry, Naruto felt a new emotion swelled in him. Exhilaration. His blood was pumping with adrenaline. He bared his teeth back at them, grinning savagely. Come on, you little shits. I so need this anyway. Come, air. Mama's gonna gut you all. The next 10 minutes was a whirlwind of joy, mad joy. Naruto laughed and laughed and laughed and danced among the yelping wolves, relishing in the familiar rush of a good fight. His body flowed beautifully in the air, all power and sinewy grace. It felt incredible. He felt like he had suddenly gotten his old body back, except better. Everything disappeared around him, the trees, the skies, the road. All the worries, and frustration, and pressures that had been building up for weeks now suddenly evaporated. In one long sublime moment, Naruto spun in a vast white space to the wild beat of his heart, weightless, free. He was like a lost child who had just found home again. Home. The smell of blood, the weight of the knife in his hand, how it whistled in the air, how it sang to him a mother's lullaby. The electrifying current of adrenaline that surged through his body, unlocking its muscles, its hidden strength. The world was a cyclone of bright colors around him, a jingling carousel of sharp edges and pretty things. Forget the maze. Forget the orphans. Forget Madara. Forget everything. He could do this forever. He could stay here and dance in this glistening netherworld, drink its heady ecstasy until he was so full of it he would die. This world was too beautiful. He didn't want to go back to the real world, back to the awkward female body, back to the wailing baggage of annoying children. No, not ever. Then it stopped. Abruptly and without any warning, it stopped. Reality slammed back so fast it left him staggering. Naruto stood in the clearing and breathed with both his mouth and nose. The wolves lay at his feet in ribbons of fur and guts. The last one of them had huffed its last breath minutes ago. A few feet from the carnage were the wide-eyed orphans. Hanzo slid down from the tree trunk he was hanging on, staring at Naruto with a mixture of awe and fear. Nozomi had gone quiet, a warm unmoving bundle tied against his chest, as if she too could sense that something had happened. And Hinamori. Okay. This is awkward. Naruto shook his head, trying to kick his mind back to place. He wiped the blood off his face with one hand, then walked in slow, long strides forward. He picked up 2 pieces of dried sugar roots from his discarded backpack on the way. Here, he offered one to Hanzo, the sugar will take the edge of the shock off. He approached Mo with all the subtlety and gentleness he could muster. He must be a sight to the civilian girl, dripping with blood and wolf bits, and unmistakably non-civilian. You're a ninja. Mo looked at him as though she'd just seen him for the first time. Whispers and old wives' tales by the fire ran through her head. They told her things, warned her about the ninja, about their inhuman brutality, their killing, and their. Yes, I am. Naruto offered Mo the last piece of sugar roots. She took it, put it in her mouth, and chewed on it. Her young face was rife with thoughts, her eyes never leaving Naruto, afraid that he was going to pounce on her any moment now. Naruto sighed. Well, he knew this was going to happen. It was only a matter of time. There was no point in sidestepping it. Naruto knew who he was, and though it wasn't pretty, it was still a part of him. He found a patch of dry grass by the road and sat down facing the orphans. This was going to take some explaining to do. But just how was he going to go about it? He pondered on it for a few minutes, then held up the knife he was still holding. Last night, I made you dinner with this thing. He turned it midair, letting the children see its rusted back, its weathered blade, even the bits of wolf left in its nicks. It's the same knife I used on those wolves, to protect you both. Then he drew the knife back. That's what being a ninja is like. We kill, yes, but we can also protect. It's an individual choice. Hanzo nodded solemnly, scrunching his freckle-dusted nose in concentration. But he was only 7. Naruto wondered how much of that he actually understood. But, Mo started, looking up and down between her fisted hands in Naruto's face. Go on. You screamed, that you were going to gut them all. And you looked. The girl floundered for words. She didn't need to. He understood perfectly what she meant. War hadn't left him the same. It left no one the same. Well, Hinamori, I've been doing this for a long time. I started when I was as young as him. He rubbed Hanzo's head, eliciting a peal of laughter from the boy. When you've been on the job for as long as I have, you get a little funny in your head. Think of it as a quirk. I think you sounded really funny, said Hanzo, meaning a completely different kind of funny. Of course you do. You two are just alike. Mo muttered. The statement itself was innocent, but there was something in the girl's voice, something full of thorns and hooks. I don't want to be a ninja, she declared. Well, I don't want you to be either. Spoilt princess, Hanzo retorted. That's enough, Hanzo. Mo, but Naruto was a bit too late. In a flutter of curly brown hair and flapping gabardine, Mo was on her feet. Don't you dare talk to me like that. You servant. Take that back. I'm not. Yes, you are. If she, Mo pointed a finger at Naruto, didn't come, you were just going to be the coolie of the village. Like your mother, the whore. If she didn't come, none of this would have happened. Then she turned on Naruto. And just who are you anyway? You turned up out of nowhere and this happened. We've never had any visitors before. Maybe you did it. That was the last straw. With incredible ferociousness for a 7-year-old, Hanzo launched himself at the screaming girl. The knife hit the ground. Naruto closed his hand around the scruff of Hanzo's coat seconds before the boy could do any further damage. Hanzo. But even as he shouted this, his eyes were on Mo. The girl stared at him, her face pale and bloodless, just realizing what she had done. All of a sudden, the differences between them were obvious. Mo sobbed once, turned her back, and ran into the forest. Naruto found a clean pond nearby where he washed off the blood and taught Hanzo how to strip, skin, and salvage meat and fur from the dead wolves. Winter was coming. The animals were going into hibernation. Their little ragtag group would need all the food they can get. When he settled Nozomi into a branch and rag cradle and stood up, Hanzo turned to him. You're going after her. Yeah, no question as to who, her, was. The events had happened too fast. He had felt a touch of annoyance at first, but when all was said and done, he was still the adult here and Mo the little kid. You should just let her go. She wants to go back to that dead town. She thinks she's happy there. Hanzo. The boy looked at him in the eye, and right there, Naruto saw it, the future salamander Hanzo in him, full of cold-hearted distrust and bitter resentment. We can't trust her. She's not like us. She's one of them. Let her go. Then Hanzo gripped his hand. You're mine now. Something in that statement froze Naruto momentarily, a sort of want that indicated a lifetime of starvation. Just what had happened in that village. But he let it pass. He ran his hand through the boy's hair, blonde, just like his. Moments like this made Naruto want to give up, made him want to lie down on the road and dream about a pink-haired woman and another child who had the biggest laugh he'd ever heard. And never wake up again. But he kept on going. Hanzo, there's a lot more to being a ninja than I can teach you. But you know what? The most important thing is even the strongest of us needs his own team. They catch you when you fall, and we all fall. One day or another. He found Mo after 5 minutes of tracking through the path of crushed foliage and busted branches she left behind. When he saw her, the orphan girl was sitting in a tree hollow and picking at clumps of rot with a stick. He knocked on the tree trunk above the hollow first before he talked. Hungry yet? Mo stiffened, then looked up at him. The little Spitfire hours ago had fled and now Mo was just a child again, afraid and unsure. Do I have to apologize? Yes. Okay. That was very mean. Mo turned up then, and what Naruto saw in her face frightened him. Young children had such overwhelming emotional openness that one felt invaded merely by talking to them. Their eyes hid nothing and there was no shame in the countless shades and curves of their expression. Happiness, sadness, despair, jealousy, rage, all fearlessly and blatantly displayed. A few weeks with these unrestrained children made him wish he could order them to shut off the wet stuff, suit up, and concentrate on getting the hell out of here. Damn shame he couldn't do that, not to a 7-year-old moper and an 11-year-old cry-baby anyway. Without any warning, the girl reached out and took his right hand. She turned it up and down, side to side, looking hard for that sign that said, "This is the hand of a ninja, a killer's hand." Then she held her own up. Mo's was a child's hand, small palm, chubby fingers, yet already rough with work calluses and peppered with red needle scars. The nails short and caked with dirt. Somehow, it looked strange next to Naruto's soft, white hand. I was going to be a seamstress. The girl mumbled. I had a fish bone and a thread kit. Practiced for 2 years. Every morning, 5 to 7, before working with everyone on the field. I was going to make them proud. But they're all gone now. She sobbed once, loud and wet, and looked at Naruto as if he held her answers. I don't know what to do. What do I do? Where do I go? I don't know how to live alone. She opened and closed her small hands, opened and closed. The needle scars blinked like red stars on a brown veiny sky, fervently calling for happiness already past, running away from the unknown future. Mo Hinamori, 11 years old, homeless, and, for all intents and purposes, without a future. It took a while for Naruto to finally decide on how he should deal with Mo. He patted her wet cheeks dry and picked her up from the tree hollow. He ignored his shaking hands and the memory of her dead mother, long lean back, one leg jutting out, among the bodies. He told the child the one thing she wanted to hear, that one sentence that everyone relied on when they didn't know the real answer, or were not brave enough to look truth in the face. Everything's going to be alright. Dried leaves crackled under the sole of his shoes like jaws and teeth snapping shut. This maze was a beast, and it was about to swallow them whole. They still had a chance, that, he knew, but that chance was a quickly closing window. Once winter came, once the snow landed, once the animals fled, that would be the end. Zip. Nah. Game over. He needed to get out of here fast. When he got back to camp, Hanzo turned to him with a grimace that stayed there for exactly 10 seconds. Then, wah, what's that? The boy looked him up and down, eyes wide and mouth drawn. At about the same time, Naruto felt something hot and wet run down the length of his legs and eat through the fabric of his pants. Mo, who had slid off him long ago, turned right, took one look, and squeaked. Naruto didn't pay her much attention. He didn't look down. He knew what he would see. Blood, a lot of it. And none of the type he was familiar with either. It took about 5 minutes, no more, no less, for Mo to tie a grass-stuffed shitaobi on him. The experience felt more like a 5-hour session in a locked and loaded steam room. Naruto stood still between a bush and a tree, stark. He endured it silently. Mo chatted non-stop as she worked her magic, weaving Nozomi's cotton diaper in loops from his thigh to his hip, over his backside, over the other thigh, down. It's called a horse saddle. It will slip if you run, so don't. Pull this when you go to the bush. I still can't believe you never had. The words spilled from her mouth with gusto and absolute authority, almost giddily. She was the expert here, and out of all the crazy things that had happened these past weeks, this she could make sense out of. This she could understand, could deal. In this lurid dream of ninja and dead villages and roads that were not roads, it was the one normal thing, the stuff that good girls from decent, hard-working families did. Hanzo could never in a million years do this. This was hers. The girl couldn't help the satisfied smile blooming on her face as she hid it with more chatters on how to deal with back pains and which brew would help with the nausea. Naruto wished she would just shut the hell up. The moment Mo tugged the last knot tight, he sprang from his spot, slipped into his shirt, and took off without looking back. Mo ran after him, working her short legs to keep up with his angry strides. He felt the surge of hot, red panic when she reached for him. Neon images flickered on and off in his brain, a busy 8-lane kaleidoscope of sensations, the wet, fearful gasps of a child, wide brown eyes, the crunch of soft larynx and trachea bones crushed too easily in his un-ninja-like hands. He wished she would just shut the hell up and bring her girlish giggles and menstruation brew to the other room. Already he could smell a very distinct scent as the blood gathered between his legs. The dampened cotton brushed the walls of his inner thighs as he walked. Too much. The heat swallowed him. Mo's finger fluttered near his hand, hot and heavy and smelling faintly of washed blood. He wished she would just shut up, or he would shut her up himself. Then the panic passed and left him in cold sweat. He fisted his hands and forced Mo to hang on to his wrist instead. He couldn't bear touching her right now. And like that, he dragged the child back to camp. When he got back, Hanzo was rocking a bawling Nozomi absent-mindedly by the fire. A pot of wolf stew boiled to a froth above blades of flame, untouched and forgotten. With one hand, Naruto pulled the collar of his shirt down, bearing the alien curves underneath. His other hand reached for the howling baby. Nozomi was dishing out the mother load of headache, and the faster she got what she wanted, her dinner, the faster she would leave him alone. He could feel himself bursting at the seams. He just wanted to get this over with. Call it a day, drop dead, wake up tomorrow and leave the happenings of last night behind on the road. But that wasn't to be. He was 2 steps away when Hanzo jerked awake. The moment the boy saw him, he slingshot backwards so violently that his head hit the tree trunk behind him with a thunk. He clutched his sister to his chest and stared silently at Naruto. Comprehension took only 1 second. Hanzo. The boy held on to his sister even tighter. His small back pushed flat against the tree and away from Naruto. His gaze swept up and down, dotting on the exposed collarbone, the creamy expanse of female flesh framed by a flimsy, flop-side cotton versus neck, the belted waist and hips, then on the smudges of dried blood on the ankles. Naruto's hand held still in the air between them like one big question mark, set to explode. Mo shuffled past them, huffing in a clearly irritated voice. What are you doing, idiot? Hasn't your mother ever told you about women's monthlies? Boys. Squeamish about that kind of stuff, huh? You shut up. The boy snapped back. His eyes darted between Mo and Naruto, drawing the connection for the first time. Hanzo, please. Naruto tried again, shoving as much gentleness as he could into his voice. The boy flinched away from him. Your sister. In the end, it was the ear-piercing volume of Nozomi's cries that forced Hanzo into giving up his furious sister to Naruto. Now unburdened, the orphaned boy scooted to the far side of the camp, away from the woman and the spitting Mo. Something was jumping in Hanzo's stomach, several somethings, little invisible frogs that made a mess of his insides. Hanzo pushed his hands into the ground, grabbed, clawed, and rolled the mud into balls in his palms. He ignored Mo's disgusted sputters as he watched the woman. She sat on the other side of camp, opposite of him. Her hair glittered in the firelight, the prettiest things he had ever seen, probably the prettiest thing Mo had ever seen too. The thought brought him a smile because for once, she did not belong to Mo. She was ninja, like Hanzo's dad. So she belonged to Hanzo. But the smile was short-lived. The frogs in Hanzo's belly ate it, snapped it up like flies on a wet autumn day. For a boy like Hanzo, 7 years old and lacking of a father since birth, mother was the biggest thing that ever lived. The boss. God. The skies. The one that told him to brush his teeth, clean his hands, eat his greens. All of them combined. But that didn't necessarily mean he knew she was female, like the girls running around in his village. Mothers just were. Mothers existed before them. Mothers made the laws of the universe. Hanzo had never seen any girls do mother stuffs before, or giving birth. Mo didn't even have the stuffs to suddenly tell him that the big and all-powerful mother was somehow related to the hissing, spitting, cootie-infested gremlin sitting on the other side of camp, that would need some adjustment time before it could slot it into Hanzo's logic-defying grid of logic. The biggest thing Hanzo was struggling with, however, was a strange feeling, a deep, guttural revulsion that rose from unknown depth, pointing and snarling at everything, the woman specifically. It was this that Hanzo didn't know how to deal with. Hanzo liked the woman. He liked her hair. He liked her face. He liked her blue eyes, a strange color, just like his. Sometimes, when he slept, he brought the softness of her body and her warm tingly scent with him into his subconscious where something was growing, something infantile, faceless, voiceless, but it was growing nonetheless. If he could, Hanzo wanted to follow her forever. Hanzo looked over at them, the woman, his sister, Mo, all of them together, comfortably enveloped and accepted in this thing that he didn't have, this female thing. That beast rose in him, that intrinsic fear of the other that all human had. Hanzo felt the sting of betrayal. It was like Mo was stealing the woman from him, stealing his ninja destiny from him, stealing his identity. Hanzo. The woman called and patted the place next to her. Bedtime. Hanzo inched forward, drawn by the promise of comfort and belonging. He stopped dead halfway. The frogs in his belly wouldn't let go. Just what did this all mean? Was the woman his or not? Was she like him? Was she different? Hanzo was tempted to peek up her skirt and check for himself. Did he like her or did he hate her? Then he stopped all of a sudden. All these questions, the frogs, the beast, everything, the woman brought this on. Hanzo. He heard her call again, and even his childish mind recognized the exhaustion in her voice. The feelings rose up in him, warred with each other. The like, the fear, the hate. Hanzo settled down where he was standing. He was afraid to go too near her now. He didn't know what he would do. Naruto rocked Nozomi to sleep as he waited out the night. His body moved periodically, mechanically. The baby was long asleep and so was the girl beside him. Hanzo slept alone on the other side of camp, a reversal of the night when they had discovered they were walking a road trap and Mo had been in his place then. But Naruto noticed none of this. Right now, Naruto was in a state of petrification. He kept his eyes upward to where the bony canopy looked like the inside of a human's ribcage, gigantic, looming, and dripping with fluid. Only a sliver of silvery light came through, but even that was enough to make him shake in fear. Was it a full moon? Was it a full moon up there? The memory of last full moon was a red dot in his mind. No need to wait for winter or for their food to run out. Here, now, any seconds the moon may appear above his head, a glorious full moon singing its dark, sweet song to a monster inside him. Was this it? The end? Seconds passed in silence. The only thing he heard was the wet rush of his own breath. Minutes. Hours. Still nothing. He couldn't, for his own life, remember how long it had been since last full moon. A 5-day coma. Yes. 2 days in the village. What else? 1 week of wasted time. What else? Unending days on an unending road. Time blurred. A loop made of time and space and human weakness. Sons of bitches. In the silence of the forest, the sounds inside him were thunderous. Sounds of things beating, squishing, gurgling. The flesh cogs turned in a well-oiled female machine. The blood escaped him in clots. He felt its jelly-like exit, warm between his legs, and stiffly cold in the cotton binding. The staccato of his own irregular heartbeat. Burbump, burbump, burbump. Something was going to happen. Tonight. More and more, his thoughts were coming back to the decisions that had landed him here. Foolish. Ignorant. He'd chosen to dismiss it as a farce, hadn't even looked at the symptoms all the way back at the Senju fortress, or he'd have known. The hormones running through the veins of this body were the equivalent of psychoactive drugs. Haloperidol, thioridazine, quinacridinal benzylate, the loads. A few drops of amobarbital would make a man spill his gut, another few drops would make him murder his family in cold blood. His body was jacked up to its own 24/7 drug factory, pumping its own version of chemical lobotomizer nonstop, and all the decisions he had made had been under its influence. The question came back to him. Why a woman? As if a woman's form could wreak more destruction than the form of a monster. Why? Now more than ever, he longed for the light of the sun, a sun that would end the night and kill the moon, a sun that would deliver him from this darkness. Dot. He knew it was a dream the moment it started. Somehow, that made it worse. He stood in front of a kitchen sink, washing the blood off his hand. A dead person stood behind him. The sharp floral scent of her skin made him want to cry. Hey baby. Sakura Uzumaki nudged him to a side and released her basketful of apples into the sink. Her laughter tickled the soft of his neck. Her fingers squeezed his left butt cheek. Late to your own son's birthday party. He's pissed off. Somebody's going to get spanked, and it's sure not gonna be me. Naruto turned to her, face slack, caught between extremes of joy and despair. I did. You sure did. She nodded toward the oscillator clock on the wall, not a frog but a pink Hello Kitty with a dangling tail, because Sakura liked pink things, and in the Uzumaki household, Mama Uzumaki equaled queen of the universe. The clock read 5:45 p.m. The paper calendar next to it read December 5th, 3xxx. The door and the window shone supernova white. Sounds took on that blurry quality of dreams. He heard the birds, the dogs, and the jingles of a bicycle approaching, then the door slammed in its shutter and in ran a child. Hikaru. His heart imploded in his ribcage. Hikaru. Sakura yelled. Don't run into the house with your shoes on. But the child was too drunk on his own high to pay his mama any attention. Instead, he turned to Naruto, wearing that trademark Uzumaki shit-eating grin. Old man. Hang out your butt now so I can kick it. His son's laughter boomed in the space between his eardrums and Naruto thought. I'm losing it. Then he thought, alright, give me the 3 orphan brats, just don't leave me with him. Please. He'll eat me alive. He slumped down on the kitchen counter and watched the bantering between mother and child, unsure as to where he fit into this picture. Hikaru took Sakura's hand and pulled her running out the door. Sunlight chased after their heels. Naruto was left alone in a house that was suddenly too big and too small all at once. He hesitated at the threshold. Did he go after them? Or did he stay behind? Do female brains dream wishful dreams? Do they dream wonderful and impossible things? The 26-year-old Rokudaime would stay and barricade the house. He was battle-hardened, jaded, wary of too good promises. The genin-age Naruto Uzumaki, on the other hand, would zip right through the door. 12-year-old Naruto would have gone anywhere for his Sakura-chan. Slowly, almost drunkenly, he thumbed his way to the open door, but before he could get close, vines grew from the checker-tiled floor beneath and roped him in place. He turned, expecting Hashirama Senju, but what he saw was a masked visage. Mismatched eyes looked back at him, one Sharingan, one Rinnegan. He roared Madara's name. Even time and dream couldn't dull the edge off his hatred. Atta boy. Madara sauntered close, but not close enough for his clawing hands. How's the party? That was when the dream stopped. This was no dream, he realized. This was the past. This was memory unearthed from the cellar of his mind, unwanted, ugly, full of guilt. He began to fight against the restraint, suddenly full of fear. He should have gotten out of the house. You know, I'm real sorry for what I did the other day. A 3-pronged kunai dangled from Madara's hand, gift wrapped in pink and purple polka dot ribbon. Blowing up 10,000 people, my bad. So I'm bringing a truce gift today, for birthday boy out there. Naruto's eyes followed the swinging kunai. That's for his son, he thought. That's for his boy. Like fuck he'd let Madara close to him. But you see, I'm real busy right now so you'll have to do it for me. I want you to give this to him. Well, I've been in your place before so I know. Every father wants the best for his son, even ninja fathers. And I'm going to help you with that. I want you to give him the best thing you could ever give. I want you to give him. The Sharingan spun. The 3-pronged kunai spun. Quote. Everlasting peace. A bomb detonated somewhere in Naruto's head and vaporized all his rational thoughts. He lunged at Madara, teeth bared, snarling, full-on animal under the weight of rage. Madara stood just beyond his reach, chuckling humorously. Dear, look what you've done to yourself. The house melted like candle wax around them. Red apples and pink Hello Kitty clocks sluiced and juiced and joined the fleeing rivulets of liquidized brick and mortar. The dream structure of the ground wobbled, shifted. Checker tile floor gave ground to a flood of blood. He found himself paddling wildly to keep afloat. A water-walking Madara looked down at him. Look what you've done to yourself, Madara repeated. The cry of a newborn tore into open space, flashing ripples across red water. Naruto jerked awake in time with the rumble of thunder far away, his torso wet with sweat, the apex of his legs wet and reeking of something else. He cursed and fumbled for the back of the babe sleeping on top of him. Nozomi was asleep despite the softly rolling thunder. So were the other children. It would take a while yet for the nightly rain to wake and propel them into a run for higher ground. He crawled one finger between his thighs, came up streaking with female discharges. He groaned. What did that girl say? Change after every 4 hours, wasn't it? He rolled out from his bed pad and onto the soppy mud ground of the forest. The pond last evening came into view after much stumbling around. He pulled the knee-length shirt a stain-resistant maroon color he wore to sleep up and over his head, then he tore the cotton binding off and threw them into heaps on the dirt. The innards of the shitaobi spilled out from the force of the throw, a mess of green-brown grass, dark red mucus, and worm-like black clots. The sight of it made him giggle. That same batch of square-shaped 20 by 20 kerchiefs was servicing him and Nozomi both. Baby's shit. Woman's shit. Same kind of nasty shit. The surface of the pond boasted slats of floating ice. He slipped right into its depth. The burn of sub-zero degree cold greeted him like an old lover. Now this was something easy to deal with, mere physical pain. His brain flopped inside his skull. Get it over with, it said. It was when he was reaching out for the water surface that he noticed it, the second person in the pond. The first heartbeat froze his body in defensive reaction, his hands 1 inch away from the other set of hands. Second, third, fourth beats slow-moed into minutes as he took her in fully. A nymph-like creature lay in the water, on a bed of greased rocks and reflected moonlight, stark saved for the reeds in her hair. The wind blew like a woman's breath by his ears. "Hi," she said. He shuddered, half in shock, half in revulsion. "It's me." The thought sounded unreal in his head. "It's my reflection." And it was. The pond water was mirror clear, dead still unlike the moving river water. Gallons worth of wolf blood this evening had sunk down and carpeted the bottom in thick layers of grease, leaving several meters of surface area in crystal condition. A big, fat moon shone yellow light on that liquid mirror, perfect saved for the mouse's bite in one corner, and under that moon was the reflection of what he had become. He moved his left hand. She moved her right. He leaned down. She bent toward him, her titties swung forward like plump peaches. "Hey, bitch," he mocked, almost laughing. "Hey, bitch," she replied. He felt a chill as she looked at him, her blue eyes glittering in a way that would razor slit any man in two. Her voice was soft, not high but soft, and somewhat throaty, not at all like the voice that had escaped his mouth. It's an echo, he told himself. Sounds distorted by water, nothing more. But that sounded like bullshit even to him. He felt that funny switch in his head flipping open. News flash, Naruto, read the lines. He wasn't talking. She was. Her pretty pink lips were moving rapidly. Her voice blared by his ears. Man gets out of bed in the middle of the night, strips and stands in a duck pond, waiting for his and his ding-a-ling to freeze off. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, it's what crazies do, darling. That made him laugh. Fuck. I don't believe it. You're talking. Course we do, baby. Crazy people's reflections talk to them all the time. I'm being told off by my reflection, wow. He remarked casually, already far past the threshold of sanity. So what do you want, my deep dark subconscious given form? I want to talk. I want to talk about the truth. HEZB movie lightning flashed in the water background behind her. Above ground, the rain poured on his head, the air slick with tingles of thunder. Oh, he turned, ready to go back and pack his bags. Why are you running, baby? Where ya gonna run to? Why the fuck did God give women their mouths? He muttered as he waded back to shore, his eyes on his discarded clothes. Her voice chased him. You just can't deal with it, can you? You're so afraid you can't even look at me. Naruto froze mid-step. How long do you think you can run? Another day. 2. Until the moon full out and you have those children for dinner. He turned back, looked down. The water was the gate to a second world. In it, they, he, she, were a two-headed beast, their bodies joined at their legs. This is all just in my mind, isn't it? If I punch myself real hard, you're going to shut up, right? He asked absent-mindedly. Now that he was looking at her, really looking at her, he could see why the Senju had behaved so strangely around her, like children who had never seen candies before. Now the silence of the crowd every time Hashirama Senju carried her through them made sense. Now he could hear the screams and howls under that quiet. Now he knew what that meant. Same blue eyes. Same blonde hair. Set of whiskers marks. But someone had taken those, added extra spices, shook, stirred, put the mixture on an anvil and beat at it until it hardened into diamond. A woman-shaped machine designed to draw out a primordial hunger that preceded even human. He was surprised that the less disciplined of the Senju hadn't torn her apart. Then again, Hashirama had been around every day for the first few weeks. He supposed he owed the boy one more thing. The thing is, the great toad sage bullshitted you, Naruto. He blinked. She blinked. But she didn't shut up. You ate up all the shits he fed you and you didn't think. The thing is, you're dead, Naruto. Oh, you didn't survive. You should know that. You designed the seal yourself. The end. Boom bada boom. Capiche? Quote. You're fucking with me. What made it through then? He didn't like the way she smiled, like how mothers sometimes smiled at their dun-headed babies. A for asshole. B for bastard. Get it? Get it? You little twat. A ghost. She dropped the word as if it was the most inconsequential thing in the world. A stowaway on my great ship. I ate him on the way here, but he's giving me indigestion. He thinks he's calling the shots. He thinks he's the boss, but that's only because I'm asleep. He's playing naughty with my body and calling me dirty. He thinks he's the superhero. He thinks he's going to save the world. I bet he don't know that, huh? He don't know shit. He can't do shit. Because this is my body. And you, trespasser. Her voice had a funny effect on him, sort of like acidic raindrops. Her water melted his body like pan fire melted virgin butter. His skin peeled off first, then his muscles. His arteries popped off in wholesale bundles. His internal organs dropped off his bone frame one by one, then the bones itself. Until finally, only a heart remained. He could see it very clearly even if his eyeballs were rolling figure 8 on the ground, a great human heart flopping, beating bar bump, amidst its fellow human jelly. Naruto's fist hit her face in a watery explosion. She broke into a million pieces. The second punch hit the pond bed and gouged 2 tons of mud into the air, but that didn't do naught to him. He kept on pummeling her into oblivion, screaming at the top of his voice. Don't fuck with me, you bitch. You bitch. 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 ... He lost track of time after that. A red haze swallowed him. He felt like dreaming, except that his hands hurt with every impact and his body was burning, feverish. He only came back into awareness when a sound lanced through his eardrums with all the power of a piercing 140 decibels. The cry of baby. 3 things happened at once. Naruto whipped back. Mo clapped her hand over Nozomi's mouth. Mo and Hanzo both took a step back, slipped in the mud and fell flat on their butts. The first few seconds, he simply stared at the children, uncomprehending. They struggled in the mud but kept their eyes glued to him. Every tiny bone in their bodies vibrated with fear. Naruto blinked once, then finally took in his surroundings. The pond was no more. He'd pulverized it. He held up his hands and saw that the fingers were in the process of growing back, their white bones still uncovered. What? Mo stuttered. What was I doing? She nodded so hard her snot flew everywhere. Good question. What the heck was he doing? Losing it. Breaking it. Going nutter. Having a heart-to-heart conversation with himself. Hallucinating out of his ass. Too many choices, none of which sounded half-sane under the scrutiny of other people. He felt dumb all of a sudden, dumb, hollow, and dead tired. The fleeing anger left nothing but dry air in his husk of a body. I was angry. He offered his explanation for the disappearance of the pond. Beside Mo, Hanzo's face cycled through 4 ranges of color, from white to gray to beetroot purple to clotted blood red. The boy looked him up and down, eyes stopping at his chest and crotch. A spark of anger sputtered a short life in Naruto's belly. Getting your first boy. Careful where you look or I will. He stopped the thought right there. Go pack your bags, he ordered. We'll move soon. The children fled, too eager to get away. Left alone, Naruto crawled up what was left of shore and collapsed on grass-covered ground. Despair lay down beside him. What am I doing? He thought. Where am I going? What am I going to do with those children? What am I going to do with myself? Great coils of raincloud covered the moon and spared him the sight of the ticking clock. How much more time did he have? 1 day, 2. The blades of grass under him felt like teeth. The monster in his body was pushing it to end game. Naruto laughed and swallowed a mouthful of rain. He hadn't felt this lost and miserable in a long time. At least at war, He knew where he stood. He lay there for maybe 10 minutes before getting up. Another day, the long walk ahead, the road awaited. When he got back to camp, another surprise greeted him. Camp was empty. The orphans were gone. Dot, dot, dot. His first thought after the shock was, wolves. But one quick look dispelled it. No claw marks, no sign of struggle, no children bits on the ground. Then came the obvious conclusion. They ran away. Tiny footprints, already being erased by the pelting rain, heading out to the road confirmed his suspicion. By the time he came to this, he wasn't too surprised. He would have done the same. He cursed once, and was set on giving chase to his runaways when a thought popped in his mind. Why? He jerked to a halt. Why? Why what? Children ran away. Adult went after them, brought them back, set them straight. It was a formula as old as there were naughty children who didn't know what was good for them and parents who were in charge of them. It would be an idiot to ask why. But they weren't his children, were they? That sudden realization was the breaking of the dam. Thoughts strewn into his head, alien, un-Naruto-like thoughts, but each and every one of them cool, calm, and rational, as if issued from a machine. Abandon them. Get what you need. Go. If you're on your own you can make it out. You have a chance. Wait. Necessary cruelty. Mission is higher priority. Madara. Assassinate. Revenge. But, no chance of survival otherwise. Full moon in 2 days. They will be eaten. This is optimum solution. You're a man, act like one. Suddenly everything was quiet. The wind stopped howling. The rain stopped pouring. Naruto moved from his spot. He yanked the wolf strips down from branches and stuffed them in his pack. The rest he abandoned. Pots, knives, baby diapers, blankets, bed pads. They were burdens he took on for the orphans. He changed into traveling gear and surveyed the road. No moon, low light, but if he ran all night and all day, he could find the exit in a day. Once he got to the city, he could contact the Toad clan. He would put a stop to this madness. By that time, Naruto was sure that he wouldn't even remember the names of those who had traveled with him. He took the first step. Dot, dot, dot. At that same time, in another place, Hinamori tripped over a cypress root and fell flat on her face. The boy walking in front of her stopped. Come on. Hanzo held his sister to his chest and pulled his hoodie down to shield them from the downpour, but he wasn't being very successful. Both he and his sister were soaked wet. Hanzo himself was used to it, having lived here all his life, but his weeks-old sister was getting quieter by the minute. Hanzo held out a hand for Mo. The girl took it and hefted herself up. A few weeks ago, Mo would have spit at that hand instead of taking it, but circumstance had changed her. Shared terror had made an ally out of the boy who used to be the village pariah. They ran together in short bursts in the darkness, as fast as their little legs could carry them. They had ran all the way from camp, taking nothing but what was on them at the time, spurred on by the sheer terror that chased their heels. But the problem was that, they didn't know where they were going. Where do we go? Asked Hanzo. I don't know. Back home. Hanzo stopped again and looked back. Mo saw the look in his face and felt like crying herself. Home, she repeated, because she didn't know what else to say and where else to go. Both she and Hanzo had never been anywhere else except their little village, where everybody knew everybody else, and my grandmother was also your grandmother, and everything was shared by everyone. Though they both knew of Kokyo, right now, the samurai city was as far away as the heavens to them. There was a song they used to sing in Mo's village, a children's song that hummed to a strange poem. Little children, where do you go? The sheep pass the field. The birds fly back home. Little children, where do you run? Come on. She held Hanzo's hand and pulled him forward. Dot, 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 dot. His second step hit solid with a bang. A pot rolled noisily across his field of vision and suddenly the memories exploded inside his body. It was a handsomely made pot, brass and copper mix, burned at the bottom but otherwise serviceable. It had functioned as both the main cooking pot and Nozomi's bathtub. The memories were tattooed onto his skin and it spelt one word. Baby. The machine in his head screamed. Order. Mission. Revenge. But it was the scream of the dying. The human body wasn't quite as obedient as the human brain. When it felt, it felt. There was no denying it. And right now it was feeling the ghost of 100 walks. The smell of his infant son 10 years ago welded into the warmth of the now's baby, the same one that had slept on him, pooped on him, drunk from him. He let his bag fell from his hand and headed down the road, after his children. You think she'll come after us? Mo almost tripped at the mention of her, but she held herself in time and only hobbled 2 steps on one leg. Hanzo's face was dead pale when he asked this, his eyes wild and glinting. I don't know. Hanzo turned away, chagrined by his own question. For once, Mo could relate. After all, they had both stayed with her, eaten with her, slept next to her. Hanzo had it worse. He had liked her, really liked her. Mo had too, but that had only been for about a day and most of it was a homebred instinct to seek adults' approval. You think she'll come after us? Mo asked. I don't know. Hanzo snapped. Mo held out her hand to shield against the screaming rain. The road opened before them, nothing but darkness ahead. 5 minutes in, Naruto happened upon the worst thing at the time. A road split. He stood between the 2 branches, cursing all heaven and hell. Right, or left. The footprints he was chasing had already disappeared under heavy liquid artillery. He chose, hoped to hell it was the right one, and rushed forward. The first sign was when Mo's feet were no longer supplanted in 2 inches of mud but in water. The second sight was when the mountain itself rumbled around them. The boy and girl looked at each other and thought the same thing. Flash flood. We need to get to higher ground. They abandoned the road and climbed up the ascending hill back. Green life around them wilted under the weight of death by drowning. Flash floods were the tsunami of Highland, even worse, because one couldn't tell from which direction they were coming. It's coming. It's a big one, said Hanzo, voice laden with fear. Then he screamed at her. Where? Mo calmed her nerves and scanned the hill back. It was hard to see. No light. The wind roared. This part of the mountain was foreign to her, but if she chose wrong, all 3 of them would be left in the path of the flood. A slow and awful death by drowning. The ground vibrated beneath her. A tree flew by, sloughed off by the ferocious cascade. Hanzo fretted uselessly beside her. There. Left. She screamed. At that exact moment, another scream answered her. Mo. Hanzo. Mo's blood turned into ice. Down there on the road where they had left, the woman was racing a straight line to them. She had heard Mo's scream in the night. She was coming. Run. Hanzo screamed. Mo snatched his hand and pulled them to the left, right into the flood path. Her hands registered resistance, but fear gave her strength. Mo pulled Hanzo running up the mountain. Understand, please understand. Mo prayed in her head. She heard the roar of the impending water wall in front and the woman's yells behind. She pulled and ran as fast as she could. Come on, come on. Hanzo had stopped resisting. He'd got it. They had agreed to split earlier in case this happened. But not now. Not yet. Mo shot a look over her shoulder and saw the woman directly behind them, an exasperated look on her face. Too close, she thought frantically. They weren't going to make it. Her heart drummed in its ribcage. Faster. Faster. She smelt the heavy smell of water-laden air and heard the scream of the incoming tsunami. Now. Now. Mo released Hanzo's hand and they shot apart, girl to the right, boy to the left. From the corner of her eyes, Mo saw the woman hesitating for half a minute before heading for Hanzo. That half a minute cost her her life. She was in the middle of the flood path when the cascade came barreling from above. She hadn't seen it in the dark, hadn't heard it over the storm. Several hundred metric tons of moving river against a frail human body. The flood took her in an instant. Mo stumbled, then stopped entirely. We did it. She saw Hanzo's pale face on the other side. The boy was hanging like a monkey from a tree branch amidst the seconds-old river. He hadn't quite cleared the safe distance when the water came. Mo panted wetly and felt a pain in her chest. I killed. The thought rang in her head. I killed. She collapsed onto the ground and busted into sobs. She knew she should keep running. The danger was not yet over, not even nearly, but the shock of her own action froze her. That shock lasted for exactly 2 minutes before a shining blue light exploded mid-river and parted it into two. In front of the orphan's eyes, the woman rose from underwater, glowing red lines streaking her skin and her face, a shining ball of light in her right hand. It was that swirling ball of light, no bigger than a kid's toy, that was carving a mini whirlpool into the flood. The woman hadn't even bulged an inch and she was wearing a look that made it clear that she was not amused with the trap they had sprung on her. Mo's thoughts cut right in the middle of killed and transitioned seamlessly into oh. Then the woman held out her other hand, and this time the word that was muffled by the water before was heard loud and clear. Rasengan. Another ball of light popped into existence. The whirlpool grew bigger, and to the orphan's amazement and horror, its maker started to walk slowly but steadily upstream, towards them. The orphaned girl didn't need any more prodding after that. She got off her butt, didn't even pay any attention to the relief that she hadn't killed after all, and ran like hell. On the other side, Hanzo swung his tree branch like a giant slingshot and slung himself to dry ground. He landed exactly 2 steps behind Mo. Wah! What are you doing here? Mo shrieked over her shoulder. They were supposed to split. Now even that distraction time she was hoping for got crossed out. Shut up. I can't read it. I've got to stick to you. Hanzo shrieked back, his sister's head bobbing under his chin. Oh, right. The girl realized. 7-year-old Hanzo didn't know how to navigate the flash flood. He hadn't got a father to teach him that. He'd be sitting duck for the second wave if he went alone. Another rumble wrung itself out of the earth, the sound deep and old and angry. Here it comes again. Over here on Joki Range, this phenomenon was called the Orochi, the legendary 8-headed snake, the many paths of flood that devastated their way down to the bottom valleys between Mount Jo, Mount Aya, and Mount Aki. Joki Range was right smack dab between the land of fire and the land of rain. Its unique geographical position granted it lush, thick hybrid rain forest, colossal glacier reservoir on its caps, an all-year-round fog belt, and the meanest flash floods that were adamant to come around and visit every month or so. The people of Woodsmanville, in defense of their own life and livelihood, had learned how to navigate the rain god's temper since they were young. They called it flood navigation, or water scout if one wanted to be fancy. It consisted mainly of reading the signs of where the nearest flood path would go through and getting clear off that area. Up, up. Mo steered her fellow orphans northeast. The ground there was a mass of stone ridges and vine creepers, a bitch to climb through but the best bet they could take right now. The natural trenches would direct the flood into one thin but incredibly destructive flow and left the peaks as safe zone for them. In this kind of situation, flat ground would only widen the destruction area of the flood. The key to survival here was speed. Mo grabbed the tail end of one creeper and crawled up as fast as she could. She's still chasing us. Of course she is, dumbass. We tried to kill her. She would have whacked Hanzo over the head if her hands were free. But the sight of the woman hot on their heels, slowly but steadily, propelled her to climb faster. Unsuccessfully. Hanzo spit out his argument on attempted murder. He was about to point out that she was the instigator and therefore the one to blame, not him, when they heard the growl of the Orochi, its second head coming. Come on. We've got to clear it. Mo pointed to a deep trench ahead of them. The dirt and debris at its bottom were dancing wildly, a clear danger signal. Normally, she wouldn't dare take such a route. It was far safer to stay their ground on the peak between the trenches and wait the flood out. But the pursuer at their back wasn't one to be pestered by something like several thousand metric tons of melted ice and rain in the way. The woman would simply walk through it like it wasn't even there. There was only one way, and it was forward. They had got to keep moving. They made it in the nick of the time. Keep running. Keep running. It was only the second head. The Orochi didn't get its name for nothing. The orphans ran, crawled, climbed, and prayed that the ground wouldn't give beneath their feet. Mo's hands were stubs of lacerated flesh, but the adrenaline racing through her veins kept the pain at bay. Suddenly, they heard a loud earthy groan. Mo, I know, don't look up. Just keep going. That sound didn't come from the Orochi. It was bigger trouble than that. It was the sound of a landslide. Somewhere up above, the ground had given and a piece of the mountain itself was coming down on their head. They ran, stumbled, fell on their faces, got up and ran again. Mo had stopped water scouting. It was no use. The landslide dwarfed the flood by a wide margin. Death by being buried under a mountain was a far worse death by simple drowning. She only prayed that the avalanche of rock and dirt wouldn't fan out too wide. She only prayed that they would clear the distance on time. Her prayers went unanswered. After 5 minutes of blind running, the landslide came into view, a behemoth wave in the dark. Mo got only 1 second to heave a relieved breath. It's mud. Thank God, it's mud, before she was swept under. Mo flopped and kicked frantically in the mud stream, trying to break it to surface before her air went out. Several times the night skies flashed into views before her eyes. She screamed and cried and fought for her life against the current carrying her down. This was no good. There was only way this was going. The current was heading for the cliff valleys in between the mountains. They would fall to their death. She clawed into the mud, trying to find purchase. The last time the skies broke open before her, Mo found herself clinging to a rope of creepers dangling off the edge of a cliff, the mud wave racing past her down a great fall. Mo sobbed. Her body trembled with fatigue, her fingers slippery with sweat and slime. It would be so easy to slip, to let go now. Oh mama. From the far corner of her eyes, she saw Hanzo also hanging onto his life. It was at this exact moment that the woman came into view. She walked slowly, her back against the mudslide, immovable and impervious to its pull. All thoughts went out of Mo's head. Only one remained, an absolute refusal to die. Naruto. She heard herself yelling the name she thought she wouldn't use. On the far right, Hanzo followed her lead. The woman looked between them, hesitating. Behind her, the second wave mudslide and the Orochi thundered down. Mo screamed the name again and again, hoping to drown out the other boy. Save me. The creepers in her hands snapped with a dry twang. The last sight she saw was the woman free falling toward Hanzo. They buried the child came morning. There was no body, only a small empty grave and a marker saying, "Here lies hope," by a creek in the bottom of a nameless valley. She had been swept away and lost forever. Naruto stood by 2 weeping children and thought of the marker they had left back in Woodsmanville. Mom, your son loves you. Baby lives. Well, if they ever got back there again, they would have to cross out the last line. Naruto was dry-eyed when he thought this, but his face must have shown something because Hinamori looked at him as if she had just discovered something big, something life-changing. Do ninja hurt too? Yes, we do, he said simply. He hated the civilian misconception that being a ninja was carte blanche against hurt of all kinds, as if being given theoretical training was sufficient to weather death like once-a-day vitamin pills. Something like loss didn't give a damn whether you have a PhD in combating post-traumatic stress disorder. It just was. Sometimes, we hurt really bad. When the sun settled fully over the valley, he led the 2 children to a bare plain. They followed him mutely, docilely. He should have done this from the start. Naruto thought as he set to work. Using a sturdy branch, he drew a glyph in the dirt. He finished after 5 hours of work. Laid out on the ground was the bone frame of a grade S summoning seal. But he was not yet finished. The glyph needed one more ingredient before it was fully active. Get back behind there, he ordered the children, but then stopped himself. Stupid. If it blew, it would obliterate this whole mountain range. What was a few meters distance compared to that? Hey, I'm going to do something really terrible. He told them instead. But I'm doing it so we can get out of here alive, so don't you be scared. K. He waited for them to nod, then very slowly he raised a knife over his left hand, aimed, and made a clean cut through his shoulder. Dot. 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 The toad boss Gamabunta puffed into the clearing wearing only a loincloth, a hot spring steam towel and a giant wood bucket. He flapped the towel in shock and anger. What the hell? I was in the middle of. Then a voice cut through. Hey, tadpole, I thought I weren't ever going to see you. Tadpole. Gamabunta whipped around, ready to rip someone a new hole. Who? He started, then saw the thing sitting on a rock before him. He changed his question. What are you? Naruto smiled at him cheekily. Ah, I was hoping your grandpapa could tell me that. Tadashi Senju arrived at the bank of River Mu on the second day of his tracking mission. It was there that he found his biggest clue to his target, a set of standard Senju traveling clothes, armor, and sandals discarded on the bank. He checked them thoroughly for traces of the target but found very little. The clothes had been left here for weeks. Rain and wind had scrapped most of them away. The presence of the discarded items uneased him. A woman, wearing nothing but a flimsy undershirt, alone in the wilderness. If it wasn't for the lack of any signs of struggle, Tadashi would have arrived at some uncomfortable conclusion. He gathered the items into a duffel bag and sealed the bag into his flank scroll, then stood up and surveyed the trail. She headed to the west. He read from the various broken branches and the rare traces of chakra left behind. Not good. Hashirama would not be pleased. The West Land was under mass unrest. Rumors of rampant human trafficking and even an invasion from AIM. The Uchiha was in power there. The West right now was no place for a woman like his target. He needed to report this back to the new clan head. There could be further instructions to track and retrieve her right from the heart of the war zone. That would mean serious investment in time when resources were running thin. Things weren't pretty in the clan right now. But that would come later. The decision was Hashirama's. Tadashi trusted Hashirama, his cousin twice removed. He was a good leader, the best one they had in generations. Tadashi would follow him to battle and to death if necessary. With that decided, Tadashi Senju turned and took off to his clan base.